Hello and welcome back to Real Seekers. I'm your host, Dale, the Real Seeker. And today I'm joined by a special guest, Massimo Paris. How are you doing there, Massimo?
Pretty well, and you?
I'm very well, thank you. This is your first time being on the show, and I think you're coming on as kind of an expert in the area of Eucharistic miracles. I know you saw a previous show I did with a skeptic on Eucharistic miracles, and I think you wanted to come on to kind of present the positive side case there. So, yeah. With that said, before we get into today's topic and your presentation, do you want to just take a couple minutes to introduce the audience as to who you are, a bit about your background, and share some of your faith journey if you're willing as well?
Yes. Well, first of all, of course, I would like to thank you for having invited me, and thank all the people of the audience. So I was born and raised in Rome in 1955 and 69, and I grew up there. I was born and raised Catholic, but then after high school, I had about 1 or 2 years where I consider of atheism. So it was very, very brief. But and then I started practicing transcendental meditation for a few years in my 20s. I consider myself a Hindu. Although in Rome, as far as I know, there are no Hindu temples, so it was just the fact of practicing transcendental meditation. But at the time also I started studying comparative religions, and so of course Hinduism, Buddhism, all the different religions. And in studying the different religions, I realized that once you go to the core of them, you find the same message. There is one God that has spoken to different peoples according to the different conditions, social, historical, geographical conditions in which they were. And so I reevaluated Catholicism is a more Catholic way, and Catholic comes from the Greek katholikos, which means universal. So I appreciate it better, and so I returned to Catholicism, and remain there for the rest. But as I said, besides, I joke saying I'm a true Roman Catholic because I was born and raised in Rome, but I also a true Catholic in the sense that I'm not one of those Catholics who think that only Catholics go to heaven. I respect all the religions. I respect all the traditions, so here I am. One thing that I don't know if it's kind of parallel with my issue of my Catholicism is that at the age of 7, I came from a family where my mother was bipolar. Her sister, my mother's sister, when she was my mother was 20, her sister was 24. Her sister, my mother's sister, committed suicide. So there must be some kind of predisposition to on that side of the family. So at the age of 17, I started suffering from severe treatment-resistant depression, and I'm 69. I still suffering from it. I've tried almost everything on the face of the earth to try to, but without success. One thing that has enormously helped me, and probably I'll share during the presentation, has been my faith. I'm absolutely convinced that without my faith and without my lovely wife that I love deeply, I don't know if I would be here now. So, I can give a testimony of what my faith and my wife, of course, but with the help of God, with the grace of God, has done for me, have saved my life, practically, I would say.
Absolutely. And just out of curiosity for the audience, what's kind of your background in, like, what education-wise or
education-wise? I went to until at the end of high school, And then for 2 years, I attended medical school in Rome, but because of my depression, I was not able to continue the studies. So, but then I've studied. I've kept studying. Remaining interested in medicine, in particular integrative medicine, alternative medicine, and then I. Once I moved to the States, in Italy I worked as in the field of tourism. I was a tour guide and tour leader. And once I moved to the States, I started working as an interpreter. So, and then on the side of that professional activity, I started getting interested in the Shroud about 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago. I was in Italy. When I moved to the States, I started giving presentations on the Shroud. And then about 10 years ago, I started giving presentation about also the Tilma already Guadalupe, and now I started developing the interest also in Eucharistic miracles.
Awesome. Yeah, and just for the audience, this won't be, Massimo will be coming back to bless us with another presentation related to the Shroud, specifically on the theology in the Shroud, which is something we haven't really focused on a lot. So yeah, look forward to that in a future show. But yeah, with that said, welcome to Real Seekers and that. Yeah, I think I'll turn it over to you to start giving your presentation on Eucharistic miracles. You know, what is this evidence about? So
okay.
Yeah,
if you don't mind, this is my first presentation that I give on a virtual platform. So without having a live audience in front of me. So, if you don't mind, I'll do the same thing that I do with the live audience. I start with a prayer, so you can follow me. I'll say very, very slowly. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, Holy Spirit, Amen. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful and kindle in them the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and they will be created, and you will renew the face of the earth. In the name of the Father, the Son, Holy Spirit, Amen. The reason why I always like to start with this prayer, because in the prayer it is mentioned the fire of the love of the Holy Spirit. The fire has two natures, light and heat. And fire has also another characteristic, that fire turns everything into its own nature. So fire sets ablaze everything that gets in touch with. Mm-hmm. So I hope the Holy Spirit will set the audience and you also on fire with the love of God, the love of the Son, and the love of the Holy Spirit. One thing that I would like to, I thank you and the audience. But I would like to thank one person without whose cooperation and help, probably this presentation, I don't want to say it would not totally be possible, but would be probably not of the same quality. And it is a person that is my best friend, my advisor, my technical assistant, and my constant inspiration is my wife, Carol, to whom I have the privilege of being married with for 23 years. So, and having said that, the presentation is divided in, would say, 3 parts. So we'll talk about. Sorry, are you there? Hello.
Yeah, I brought your slides on the screen now. So
sorry.
Did you want me to wait or?
No, okay. Are we see? I'm still on. Okay. Why skip it?
I think you might be playing the slides rather than just like, is it?
Okay. So let's get into the presentation. So you see the slide that is Carlo Acutis, the Eucharist and the Eucharistic miracles. So that is the title. That is the title of the presentation. So having said that, let me get into the first presentation with who is Carlo Acutis, and explain why Carlo Acutis, this gentleman here. He's actually he was, because He was an adolescent that was born in London to two Italian parents on May 3rd, 1991, and died on October 12, 2006. So died at the age of 15. He was a very smart guy, and it was also somehow a kind of an adolescent like others, besides the fact of being very smart. But one thing that was very peculiar to him, he had an enormous devotion to the Holy Eucharist. He received his first communion at the age of 7, and after that, allegedly, he went to Mass and went to Eucharistic adoration every day. Before dying, the last couple of years before dying, to a fulminated leukemia, he developed, by the way, at a certain point, I said, very early in his age, he showed a very interest in computer programming and website designing. The parents bought some books for him, and so before dying, for a couple of years, he researched all the Eucharistic miracles in the world. So these two are the same, two versions of the same book. The one on the left is the Italian translation and the Italian version, and the one here on the left is on the right. Sorry, is the English version. As I had mentioned to you yesterday, the practically, if you open the two books, you will see that are the same Eucharistic miracles, arranged just a little bit differently, but the pictures are the same, the drawings are the same. The only thing that is different here in the English translation is that there is one Eucharistic miracle that is not described. That is one that took place in Legnica, Poland, in 2013. Because practically this edition, this translation was published. I think the first edition in 2006, second edition 2009, they reprint in 2016. But so the Legnica Poland was approved in 2016. So this is probably the reason why it's not present in that book. So in the process of preparing for this presentation, the presentation about Eucharistic miracles, I had bought this book by this cardiologist. His name is Franco Serafini. These two is the same book, but this one on the left is the Italian translation, the original version, and this one on the left is the English translation. So a cardiologist examine Jesus. Franco Serafini, who is this gentleman here, the cardiologist. In this book, he examines the last 5 Eucharistic miracles. In the book by Carlo Acutis, there are more than 100 miracles that are described, and there are pictures, a description of the miracles. Whereas Serafini focuses exclusively on the last 5 that are Lanciano in Italy in but the miracle Lanciano in Italy occurred in the mid-700s, but it was examined scientifically between the end of 1970 and 1971. Then Buenos Aires and Argentina were between 1992 and 1996. There were actually 5 Eucharistic miracles. 3, I would say, minor. The first and the 5th were the most important ones. Then Tixtla, Mexico in 2006, and then 2 in Poland, Sokółka in 2008, and Legnica in 2013. The one that I said is not. I would recommend this book to everybody who is interested in Eucharistic miracles, and I would definitely recommend to Kevin O'Connor that I had the impression that he has not had access to this book. I don't know if he's unaware of. He has not yet bought it, but
well, just to kind of, I mentioned that you're friends with Franco Serafini, and I think you and Franco have agreed to come back to discuss with the skeptic Kevin. So he told me he did buy this book and he's reading it now, but before he hadn't. So
so Kevin said that he has a book now.
He bought it now and he's reading it. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. For people that are unaware of this book, one word of advice is, I think, is an excellent book for those who are interested in Eucharistic miracles. But for people who do not have at least a basic knowledge of medical terminology, it's not an easy read. There are plenty of footnotes that explain the medical terms. So just to let you know, if you think that something you can read on the beach is not exactly the case. So if people do not have medical knowledge or knowledge of at least medical terminology, there are footnotes. It's a technical book. So you did have explained that I'm in contact with Dr. Serafini. I had bought the book, the Italian book, years ago, but I'd not for years I'd left on the shelf. But then last year, in the process of starting to develop this new presentation, I was fascinated, so I contacted him, and so I'm in contact. And actually, yesterday I spoke with him, and I asked him if he would be available eventually to come to the show with me and speaking, debating with Kevin about Eucharistic miracles. Having said that, so this is the fundamental introduction of the presentation. Now I would get into the second part, that is, I as I said, I'm Catholic, but as I said, I'm not here to try to convert people who are not Catholic to Catholicism. But I think that in order to understand a little bit what Eucharistic miracles are, I would like to talk briefly a little bit about what is the Catholic doctrine about the Eucharist. To get into this part, I would like to, one thing that I have examined, I will ask myself, what is the message that God is trying to send us through Eucharistic miracles? Because the Eucharistic miracles, as I said, there are more than 100 that have been approved by the Church. Definitely, one of the messages to try to make, especially Catholics, aware of the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. That is one of fundamental tenets of the Catholic doctrine. That once the bread and wine are consecrated, there is the real Christ is really, truly, and substantially present in the both species. But I think that there is also another message, that is that the message of the Eucharistic miracles, especially for the Catholic, is not too much a message of congratulations. It's more a message of warning. To the point that, you know, when we have a car, if we are running out of gasoline, there is the light that pops up, turns on. Or I have a Prius, Toyota Prius. Now, I don't know, probably it's a feature in many cars that when we get too close to a car, too close to a wall, too close to the curb, it starts beeping, beep, 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 beep. So I think that is this kind. God is sending us, as I say again, especially us, me and the other Catholics, some kind of warning, in the term that, according to, I heard from several sources that only 85% of the Catholics do not go to Mass on Sunday regularly on Sunday, and 70% of the Catholics do not understand, to say the least, or do not believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist.
Do you mind if I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, please.
So I'm just kind of curious because you're kind of covering the theology aspect here. And I'm just wondering, so you mentioned there are 100 cases of credible Eucharistic miracles.
More than 100, but so it's okay. Yes, more than 100.
More than 100. Are all these within a Roman Catholic perspective, or are there Eucharistic miracles within Orthodoxy or other, other things that denominations that teach transubstantiation?
The ones that I know are within the Catholic Church. I have not investigated the Eucharistic miracles in the Eastern Church, in either Greek or Russian Orthodox. But once I remember I was talking with a friend of mine, and he said that but it's something that was limited to that conversation. I have not yet the chance, but I actually would like, and especially now that to investigate it more. He said that in the Catholic Church there are Eucharistic miracles that focus more on take especially the form of related to the Eucharist. But he said, but as I said, I have not the chance to. I found very interesting that often there are issues related to icons, because probably as people know, during for a couple of centuries around the 7th, 8th century, 9th century AD, there was the famous iconoclasm, when there was the idea that the worshipping of icons was idolatry, and so there were a huge amount of mosaics, images, icons that were destroyed. So this friend of mine mentioned that usually in the Eastern Orthodox Church, miracles occur more related to icons or holy images. But as I said, I've not had the chance to investigate yet.
No problem. And because we're still at the intro part, you've kind of already answered this, but an audience member just joined named Harry Stark. And he's just asking, does Massimo have a position on the Shroud of Turin and the Sudarium of Oviedo? Now, Massimo is going to be coming back to do a full presentation on the Shroud, but if you want to just answer that in like a brief couple minute answer, we can move on. But so he's asking, do you have a position on the Shroud of Turin?
Well, to give the. I'll answer you what an event, an anecdote. So I had been invited by a friend of mine who had a radio show, to talk about the Shroud. And at a certain point he said, if from 0 through 1, being 0, you think that the Shroud is totally a hoax or fake. I did this 1 to 100? No, from 0 to 100%, to 0 to 100%. Being 0, the fact that you don't believe at all in the authenticity of the Shroud, and 100% you totally believe in the authenticity of the Shroud. What is the percentage you would give regarding the authenticity of the Shroud? I said 1,000,000%. So I would put my head under the guillotine that in case the Shroud were not authentic to be chopped off, and I have no doubts that I would keep it. So.
Gotcha. And what are your thoughts on the Sudarium of Oviedo? They ask about that as well.
Same thing. Actually, there is one blood stain on the difference between the number one. The Sudarium of Oviedo is a much smaller cloth than Shroud, and on the Shroud of Oviedo there is no bodily image. There are only the pleural edema, that are fluids that came out of the nose and the mouth of Christ when he was. The Shroud of Oviedo allegedly was, according to the studies carried out by the Spanish Center of Syndonology, was wrapped around the head of Christ for about an hour while Christ was still on the cross after dying. So after dying, they covered his face with the sudarium, and then was taken down, and the sudarium was kept around his head for about another 45 minutes, another hour, until he was taken to the tomb. At that point, was pulled off from the head and placed in a corner. The story of it is that cloth that in the chapter 20 of the evangelist St. John, it is said when Peter and John went to the tomb, there were the burial cloths, John uses the plural, lying there, and the cloth had been placed around his head, rolled in a corner. That is the Sudarium of Oviedo. That cloth had been placed around the head of Christ. It was in the Gospel of John is mentioned to be rolled in the corner.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So, yeah, I'll let you get back to your presentation with the Eucharistic miracles there.
Yes. So I was talking about what I think is the fundamental message of the Eucharistic miracles. I think that the one is the stressing the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, but it also is a kind of warning to the Catholics in particular, so regarding the alarming statistics that the people do not go to Mass, do not believe in the real presence of the Eucharist. So I would like to start with the slide that shows this is a paragraph from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Again, I'm stressing that I don't want to try to convert anyone, but he said the desire for God is written in the human heart, because man is created by God and for God, and God never ceases to draw man to himself. That sentence between square brackets is I stressed even more, to unity with him. Only in God will he find the truth and the happiness he never stopped searching for. So having suffered from depression for practically 52 years, having found in my faith and the sacraments, my life jacket that's preventing me, the idea of committing suicide never crossed my mind, even though I went through hell on earth. What I've suffered with my depression, I wouldn't wish to my worst enemy. I would like to say that in this statement, this paragraph, it is somehow almost condensated the whole history of salvation. That when it says the second line, because man is created by God and for God, we have created by him, and we need to return to him. And God never stops inviting us to unity with him. One thing that we don't understand, that only in him we shall find the truth and the happiness he never stops searching for. So we search for happiness and satisfaction in a lot of external aspects, money, power, notoriety, physical pleasures, but those will never fill our spiritual need for happiness that only in God we can find. That makes sense.
Yep.
So, and these are two, returning to the issue of how can we find happiness. These are the two paragraphs of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It says the Beatitudes respond to then the natural desire for happiness. This desire of divine origin, God has placed it in the human heart in order to draw men to the one who alone can fulfill it. So the point is that God is calling us to share in his beatitude. Actually, it says, and then the next paragraph, the lower one. As long as we understand that we can find happiness only in him. If we try to find it elsewhere, we are kind of doomed to find often frustration, dissatisfaction, and sometimes even suffering. So and then the lower paragraph, it says the Beatitude revealed the goal of human existence, the ultimate goal of human acts. God calls us to his own beatitude. So God wants to share with us his beatitude. But often we escape that. we try to find happiness and beatitude, is another word for happiness, synonymous happiness practically, in external things, and that's not a good recipe. So to show that I'm kind of correct, I would say that depression has become, according to the World Health Organization, the leading cause of permanent disability in the world. So we consume more and more, we accumulate more and more goods, but we are more and more unhappy. I remember years ago I watched a documentary with a French economist who said, we consume nowadays 25 times more than what we consumed in the mid-1800s. But as I mentioned here, the depression has become the leading cause of permanent disability. So we are not happy. So something doesn't click. The identity, this model of happiness that is presented to us by the modern society, the modern civilization, doesn't work. And I think it doesn't work because we don't try to find happiness in God. So now we get specific into the Eucharist. This other segment, paragraph of the Catechism of the Catholic Church say, Holy Communion augments our union with Christ. The principal fruit of receiving the Eucharist in Holy Communion is an intimate union with Christ Jesus. Indeed, the Lord said, he who eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me and I in him. Now, I don't want to say that Protestants, since they don't have the Eucharist, then they're doomed to be unhappy. As long as we sincerely and honestly try to love God and to follow his commandments, I don't think that God will refuse us the possibility of getting closer, more united with him, and we refuse us the possibility of being happier.
Yeah, there are degrees of happiness, right? So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, definitely. And here, so this is somehow fundamentally what is the definition of the Eucharist according to the Catholic teaching. The sacrament of the Eucharist is the sacrifice of the body and blood of Jesus on the cross that takes place on the altar at every Mass. It is a divine event of the very death and resurrection of Christ that happened in history and in every age for the redemption and salvation of all. One thing that here I would like to stress, Christ was 100% man and 100% God. As a man, he was crucified 2,000 years ago and then resurrected and ascended into heaven. But as God, his sacrifice is eternal. And at Mass, this is what the Catholic teaching says, is that at Mass, through the priest, we mysteriously enter into that sacrifice and make it present. So it's the Eucharist, the Mass, the sacrifice. It's not a symbol. It's not a reenactment of the sacrifice of Christ on the cross. Is the sacrifice the only an eternal sacrifice into which we re-enter at every Mass? And actually, the Eucharist is a sacrifice because it represents the sacrifice of Christ on the cross in the sense of describing it. But represents means also it makes it present every time that we attend Mass. Those meanings of double meanings of certain sentences or words that I find fascinating, especially having worked as an interpreter, as a linguist. I'm fascinated by etymology, the origin of the words. And then the other fundamental point of the Eucharist, that in the most blessed sacrament of the Eucharist, the body and blood, soul and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ, therefore the whole Christ is truly, really, and substantial contained. And this is the definition that goes back to the Council of Trent that took place between 1545 and 1563. Now I'll show you a couple of beautiful examples of Christian art. This is the church of the mosaic in the Church of St. Clement in Rome. I grew up about it's probably less than a mile from the church, so I can walk to it. And practically because of original sin, mankind lost access, to the Garden of Eden. Of course, let me clarify that when we say Garden of Eden, we not necessarily mean a location or a place. We mean a state of perfect harmony between mankind and God, mankind within itself, and mankind and nature. Once that somehow we lost that spiritual condition, that spiritual state, and that we did practically we lost the access to paradise. But with the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, practically replace the tree of life. In doing so, he reopened practically the possibility for us to access paradise. And the symbolism here is very clear. In this mosaic, you see the Christ on the cross. There are 12 doves on the cross, 3 above Christ, 2 and 2 on the 2 sides, and 5 below him, that symbolize the 12 apostles. But then here, if you look at the bottom, you see under those plants, there are, you see one. Can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Okay. You see there are 1, 2, 3, and 4. They look like small rivers. See 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those 4 rivers are the rivers that, in the description of the Garden of Eden in Genesis, departed from the Garden of Eden. So practically, no, here. So you see those. Your cursor's here. Okay, my wife is telling me that on her computer, my cursor shows up in another. You see my cursor at the bottom of the cross? Above
it's not at the, no, it's showing up on like one of the circles. It's not at the bottom of the cross.
Well,
now it is. You were just there. Now you're on one of the sheep. A little to the okay, so go right.
And I see in my wife's computer, my cursor doesn't move. Mine is moving. I don't know why.
It's your cursor's moving on our end, in terms of what we're seeing, but you're not in the right place. Like you're
to the left. I don't know why it's not. But anyway, if you look at, under the cross, there is that what looks like a bush, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look under the bush, you see there are two deer, one on the left, one on the right.
Yeah.
That's like 2 small deer. Between the 2 deer, you see there are like 4 small rivers, 4 small streams.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Above the lamb with the halo, above the lamb of halo, between the 2 deer on the right and the left, and between the bush on the top and the lamb with the halo, which is Christ, the Lamb of God. So what looks like those 4 rivers, those are symbolically the 4 rivers of the Garden of Eden. And so the Christ being with the cross at the center of the 4 rivers of the Garden of Eden symbolizes that he replaced the tree of life. And replacing the tree of life means that he reopened practically the gates of heaven. Does it make sense? symbolically
Yep,
speaking.
yep, I get what you're saying there.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, very good. So this is another very beautiful piece of art. This is a miniature from the Missal of the Archbishop of Salzburg. This is a work of art which dates to 1481, and here you see that in the Garden of Eden, it is the fact there were two trees, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But actually here, can you see my cursor moving?
Yep. You're
Okay.
on the left side. Yeah.
Okay, good. Now it's moving correctly. So, but this is what in the Middle Age, in the Renaissance, was called the tree of the living and of the dead. Practically implying that actually there are not two trees: the tree of life, the tree of good, knowledge of good and evil. The tree is one. What changes is the way, the attitude with which we approach it. So to explain this symbol, if you look to the left, the left side of the tree, you see on the tree there are what looks like white discs. Those are, excuse me, those are the hosts, the consecrated hosts of the Eucharist, and that is the blessed. And then there is a crucifix on the left. You see it?
So yeah, we don't see the crucifix or anything. It looks like the picture is kind of cut off. Yeah. There's like the red flower, but it's cut off or something.
No. On the tree, on the
okay.
In the tree. Do you see in the tree?
Oh yeah, I see it.
There, I'm trying to circle it now. Do you see it?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, your mouse is off again, but I see the cross in the tree.
Okay, there is a cross on the left, just above the Blessed Mother. So the Blessed Mother is picking some hosts and giving to the faithful that are on the left. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay. Whereas on the other side, you see there is a skull in the tree.
Yeah.
And so at the bottom of the tree there is Adam that is kind of asleep, or I don't know if he's asleep or drunk or whatever, but. Then there is the Satan, the snake of Satan, which is offering a fruit, because on the tree there are also fruits. Eve is picking a fruit and giving to people on the left, but behind them there is the death. There is death, the skeleton. So practically those are people that evidently approaching the Eucharist with the wrong attitude, especially in the condition of mortal sin. Then the Eucharist, instead of being a food for life, becomes a poison practically. Does it make sense?
Yeah. So gotcha. You're kind of talking about Paul's warning there. Like if you go to the Lord's Supper in the wrong state.
Yes, exactly. From the letter to the Corinthians. So exactly. So very good. So here I finished the talk about the Eucharist. Is there any question so far? Otherwise, I start getting into Eucharist miracles proper.
Yeah, there is one from Harry Stark where the way he asks, how would Massimo respond to people who say that Massimo is an Italian and therefore he's just automatically wrong? And I asked, what did he mean by that? And he meant because you were born in Rome and stuff like that, you're fervently Roman Catholic. So I think he's trying to ask about what would you respond to people who just say, look, you're just biased. You come from a Roman Catholic background, so we can't take seriously what you're saying. I think that's what he's asking.
Okay. Well, yes, I was born in Rome, so in Italy. Yes, I would say that Catholicism is probably more more preponderant than Protestantism. But what I would like to say that I have studied, as I've said that when I started in my 20s, I still do it. Not that I've stopped doing it. I started studying all the different religions, and I found that practically once you go to the core of all the different religions, you find the same truth. So it's not that I think I don't think to be superior to others because I'm a Catholic. As I said, I respect the Protestants, I respect the Muslims, I respect the Jews, I respect the Buddhists, I respect the Hindus, I respect all the religions. As long as the person of other religions are sincere and honest and people of goodwill. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, I think
I'll give you an example. Probably being an interpreter, having worked in the field of linguistics, I'll give you an example. Probably will explain what I'm saying. If I say 4 words, one is ampoule, the second is bombilla, the third is lampadina, and the fourth is glühbirne. Do you think, or the person that asked the question, do you think I said 4 different things or I said the same thing? Let me repeat: ampoule, bombilla, lampadina, glühbirne.
You're waiting for. So Harry, if you're still there, he's go ahead and answer. Do you think?
Well, so okay, those 4 words, superficially, according to their form, how they are written and spelled, they seem 4 different words. I said the word light bulb. Ampoule is French, bombilla is Spanish, lampadina is Italian, glühbirne is German. So I said the word light bulb in 4 different languages. If we focus on the form of reality or on the form of language, those are 4 completely different. They appear and they are written and pronounced completely differently, in a completely different way. But if we go to the core, if we go to the meaning is the same. So my point is that when we look at the different religions, if we stay if you look at the form of the different religions, they seem very different liturgies, very different. But once we go to the core, I guarantee we can find the same truth. I don't know if I'm making sense. If I kind of
I was just going to back you up and say, like, myself again, I think it's important to be aware of biases or backgrounds, but the most important thing that I'm going to base my decision on is the evidence. I'm a strict evidentialist, so I don't care who's stating something or what their background is, so long as they're presenting facts and they've got good reasons or evidence to back that up. That's what I follow. So it's not so much about the person, it's about the evidence. So yeah, I don't know if you would agree with that. Are you an evidentialist yourself, Massimo? Or
well, yes, I base on facts, but for example, sometimes with I have some discussion with my father-in-law about science, and my father once told me, science is facts. I told him, yes, Dad, but facts need to be interpreted, and sometimes the same fact can be interpreted in very different ways. I don't know if it makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yep.
I'll give an example about what I mean when the facts can be interpreted in different ways. Let's say there is someone sitting on the beach early in the morning, sitting with the eyes half closed, half open. Someone passes by, say good morning, and the person doesn't answer. The second person passes by, say hello, and the person sitting doesn't answer. The third person passes by and say hello, and the person sitting doesn't answer. The first person walks away and thinking he must be deaf. He didn't hear my greetings. The second person walks away saying, maybe he's angry. He must have had an argument with his wife. This is why he doesn't answer. The third person walks away saying he must be so deeply in meditation that he's totally out of connection with the present reality of the moment. So the situation is the same. 3 people pass and said hello to someone who didn't reply to either one or the other, the second or the third. But the interpretation were completely different. Does it make sense?
Yep. I get what you're saying. Totally.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
So at this point, we are getting to the Eucharistic miracles. I fundamentally tackled the 5 Eucharist miracles of which that I mentioned earlier, of which Dr. Serafini talks in his book. But since in that recording of that show that you had, you Dale with Tyler and Dane and Kevin had, I think it was in July, correct?
Yeah, it was July.
Yeah. So they said that Eucharistic miracles are when a host bleeds or when the wine turns into blood. Would like to show 2 Eucharistic miracles out of those plenty that not necessarily Eucharistic miracle occurs when the host bleeds or when the wine turns into blood. And I'll start with the one Eucharistic miracle that occurred in Rimini, which is a town on the coast of Italy towards the north. When there was St. Anthony of Padua, I don't know if he was trying to convert a Cathar heretic. He was trying to explain the Catholic teaching. At that point, this Cathar heretic told him, "Well, you know what? Let's strike a deal. I'll make my mule fast for 3 days. I won't give my food to my mule for 3 days, and then I'll bring it here on the square, the central square of Rimini, and then I'll offer the mule a stack of hay, and you will if you are able to show to me that the God that is in the Eucharist that you claim to be, I'll convert to Catholicism." Well, here I have two paintings from one. It is at the Louvre Museum by Domenico Beccafumi, and so what happened that 3 days later, so the heretic had starved the poor mule for 3 days. That didn't give the mule any food. Then there was brought into the square, and the heretic offered the mule hay. But here it seems that the mule is actually bowing to the owner. But actually, the story goes that at that point, Saint Anthony came with a monstrance, that is that liturgical object which is used for Eucharistic adoration in the Catholic Church. And so for the God the Creator that is here present, show your reverence. So the mule bowed in front of Saint Anthony. Here it seems that he's bowing to the owner, but actually the story is that the mule bowed to the in spite of being totally, I would assume that after 3 days without eating was quite hungry, but bowed to, and this is I lost. Okay, this is another representation of the same miracle, but here it seems to be occurring inside the church. Actually, it occurred on a square. So, does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, so this is there are some Eucharist miracles that involved even without the host bleeding or the blood turning to wine, involved animals. And this is another Eucharist miracle that actually took place in Tumaco. Tumaco is an island just outside of the coast of Colombia. In 1906, actually, I think it was I think it was the 31st of January 1906. The earth trembled, shook for about 10 minutes, and then of course this is a reconstruction. It's not a real picture of. This is what you see, and then people realized that there was a tsunami that was coming, and so the people went to the pastor, Father Gerardo Larondo, and there was also another priest who was Father Julian, And so the pastor went into the church, consumed the small host, put the big host into the monstrance, that is the liturgical object, and they started going to told the people to follow him praying, and they went to the beach. And at that point, with the tsunami approaching, the priest, the Father Larondo, lifted the monstrance and make the sign of the cross with the monstrance. And without even, before they realized, that the people behind started screaming, "Miracle, miracle, milagre, milagre" in Spanish. Milagro, sorry, milagro, milagro. And actually they started to see that the tsunami had kind of started to deflate and started to recede. And so the island was spared, and actually the news traveled all over the world, to the point that Father Rondo started receiving letters of prayers from all over the world. So this is to give you two examples of that. There are Eucharistic miracles that not necessarily are related only with bleeding hosts or wine that turns into blood. And finally, okay, let's get into the 5 Eucharistic miracles that of which Dr. Franco Serafini talks in his book. This is the one that as I mentioned earlier, that the first one took place in the 8th century, in the 700s. This is the town of Lanciano. I think it's a small town. Has, I think, 20, 30, between 20 and 40,000 inhabitants. I don't know the exact population, but anyway, it's a small town in Abruzzi. And so this church that you see here is the Church of St. Francis, but this church was built in the 13th century, around 1258, something around that date. But under that church, there are still the remains of a smaller church, a small chapel that was called the Church of Saint Domitian and Legocian saints. There were 2 saints, Domitian and Legocian. In that small chapel, in the mid 700s, around 750. There was a Basilian priest, Basilian meaning the lineage of Saint Basil the Great, who's a saint much more known in the Eastern Church than in the Orthodox Church, than in the Catholic, probably. And this priest was doubtful about the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. And at the moment of the consecration, the big host that practically turned completely into flesh, and the wine turned completely into blood. So those 2 specimens have been preserved until present day. So this is the inside of the church, the Church of St. Francis, how it looks nowadays. And if we move towards the sanctuary, the entrance is here, I would say, towards me. If we move towards the sanctuary, we see that there is this. This is beyond the altar. The altar is more towards the entrance. There is this marble monument under which there is this marble tabernacle. And inside the marble tabernacle, there is a silver reliquary that is this one, in which are preserved in the monstrance, which is the upper part. Inside the reliquary, there is what is left of the host which turned into flesh, and in the chalice at the bottom, it is preserved in 5 globules. It is preserved what the wine turned into. It's 5 globules coagulated blood. I just comment here when in the show in July, Kevin said, "Well, I think the miracle Lanciano didn't occur more than 200 years ago." only the reliquary, this one, just the reliquary, this one was made in 713. So we must at least, if we want to believe that Kevin, the theory of canon, that this is definitely a hoax or something made up, definitely it's no more 200, at least 300, almost 300. 330 years, because more than 300 years. The reliquary alone dates to the 713. Anyway, there is a former reliquary in which I did include here, in which the two specimens were preserved. And anyway, the memory of the miracle has never been, even though yes, the most recent, or at least the most ancient written document that do not date back prior to 1574. But the memory of the miracle has never been lost in Lanciano. If we think that even the Gospels were not put in writing before 20, 30, 40 years after the passion, death, resurrection, and of Christ and ascension to heaven. So the must have been, both for the gospel and in the case of Lanciano, some kind of oral transmission of the memory of the event.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Or
yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so basically, you're responding to kind of Kevin's historical objection, saying that our first document comes in the 16th century, the 1500s.
Yes, 1574.
And this is supposedly a 700 AD miracle, is when the miracle took place. But I think one of your arguments, counters against this objection, is that the reliquary itself, like the thing that's holding the material with the angels and stuff, this dates to the 700s AD?
713.
713. Okay. And with the material that's in the middle and in the chalice between the two angels, could those be replaced in any way? Or are you saying once they're in there, they're locked? Kind of.
Well, if you notice, I'm circling here with my cursor. Do you see near the angel on the right?
Well, your thing's off. Your mouse is off again. Like, are you on the bottom one or are you at the top?
If you look, no, at the bottom one. If you look at the chalice with we preserve the coagulated blood. You see between the chalice at the center and the angel on the right, there is looks like a seal, a red seal.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Okay. Starting in 1574, about more or less every 100 years, the two specimens get inspected. There is some kind of inspection of the two specimens, and then gets relocked and sealed. So I assume I would be super sure that is the last seal that was placed after the examination of the Professor Linoli in 1970. But so the point is that it is known that there was a former book that was in existence in there at the monastery where the miracle is preserved, but was stolen. There were two priests that appeared at certain point and remained there in the convent for a few days, and at a certain point they disappeared with these books. So there was memory of a former a book that was written before 1574, but was stolen. But so there is memory both of the mirror, also the document was stolen. I think my wife mentioned that I said the monstrance dates to 713. I meant 1713, not 713. I'm sorry, I meant.
Oh, okay, I got you then.
So the monstrance was made in 1713, And my replica to Kevin, since he said this miracle, he said in that video that I don't think it is more than 200 years old. Just only based on the actual monstrance that date to 1713, it should that estimate of Kevin should be moved at least 100 years earlier, at least. So,
Gotcha.
but as I said, there are also other elements, as I said, historical and of tradition, of the oral transmission that
speak against that. And okay, and the other last question, and then I'll let you continue on. But
yes, go ahead.
Is it so? Since this thing's inspected by the church every 100 years or so, and that's where they get the red seal. So are you saying like there was no way, let's say in 1930 or something like that, or like people could put in new material into the chalice, like take out whatever was the old thing and then sneak in material? Like, is that possible in any way, or
they would have to break the seal? So
and that would be evident. Okay, gotcha. Cool. Thank you so much.
Shall I keep going?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is a magnification of the upper part, the monstrance, where it is preserved what are the remains of the large host, and this is a further magnification. I'll mention. I'll get. Let me show first that the chalice that contains the 5 globules of coagulated blood. So this is the chalice, and this is a further magnification of the 5 globules of. So this is Professor Odoardo Linoli. He was the histopathologist or pathological histologist, who he was the head of the labs of the hospitals of Arezzo in Tuscany. He was also professor at the University of Siena, also in Tuscany. He was the person who was entrusted with the task of examining the 2 species. And the conclusion was that the blood is real blood. The flesh is myocardial tissue. So let me go back to 2 slides. So practically that what looks like a disc or a small circle is like an horizontal slide of a human heart. Slice of human heart. Does it make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So the flesh and the blood belong to the human species. The blood type is AB, that is the same that it can be found on the shroud and on the Sudarium Oviedo, which you asked me a question earlier from someone in the audience. I personally knew Dr. Carlo Goldoni. He was a hematology in Rome, who was the person who identified the blood type on the Sudarium Oviedo, and he had received some I think some yarns from Monsignor Giulio Ricci. And here I end the first miracle, the one of Lanciano. Is there any question, or I can move to Buenos Aires?
It's kind of a question for both, because it is Dr. Linoli who worked on both Buenos Aires and Lanciano. So
Linoli worked fundamentally on Lanciano. Then since he was still alive, I don't remember when he died, but then he was asked also an opinion also about Buenos Aires, but he was not the main. Actually, Buenos Aires, I mentioned later, there were several experts who presented their evaluated the specimens from Buenos Aires.
Gotcha.
Anyway, he as Kevin said, and I confirmed that he was also, his opinion as an histopathologist was requested also for Buenos Aires. I confirmed that.
Gotcha.
But he was not the only one for Buenos Aires. He was one of the many in that
cool.
case.
All right, cool. I'll let you continue.
Can I go on? Okay.
Yeah.
So now we go to Buenos Aires. So we move to Argentina from 1970-71. We go to 1992. This is the Church of St. Mary in Avenida La Plata. It's neither a touristy neighborhood nor kind of degraded neighborhood. So you kind of normal normal neighborhood without nothing special nor too degraded. So this is one picture. I have this other picture with more sun. And this is the interior of the church. So between, as I mentioned earlier, between 1992 and 1996, there were 5 Eucharistic miracles that occurred, all 5 in this church, in this parish. Someone could ask why 5? Well, we should ask God. I have no idea. Even Dr. Serafini said, I listened to some of his lectures in Italian. Unfortunately, there are not many lectures of him in English. He said, but up there, I mean, in heaven, do not have a marketing department with an allocation office where they can distribute resources in a more, I don't know, democratic or way. So, of course, him too. We anyway. So of course I shall start with the first Eucharistic miracle. But you see here on the right hand side, you see that crucifix there on the right nave. You see my cursor moving, or
it might be in the wrong place, but I'm not seeing across where your mouse is.
If on the right hand side, you see the first arch on the right hand side.
Yeah.
If you look at, you see the
like underneath the light,
underneath the light, between the pillar and between the pillar on the left, and there is a half pillar on the wall. You see there is a wooden crucifix there.
Yep, I think. Yeah, I see it.
Okay, that is where the I'll get there. I'll show another picture where the 5th Eucharistic miracles originated. So, but let's start with the first one. So on Friday, May 1st, 1992, Carlos Dominguez, who was a lay minister of the Eucharist, noticed the 2 host fragments on the corporal. The corporal is a linen small cloth that is usually placed on the altar when the mass is celebrated, or in this case, it was in front of the tabernacle. The tabernacle, for those who are not familiar with it, in the Catholic Church, is that kind of small, looks a small house in which the consecrated hosts are preserved in between masses. So once hosts are consecrated during Mass, and at the end of the Mass, if the hosts have not been all distributed to the congregation, at the end of the Mass, the consecrated hosts are placed inside this small, look like a house, that is called a tabernacle. So these lay ministers saw these 2 fragments of hosts in front of the tabernacle and informed the pastor. The pastor was Father Juan Salvador Carlomagno, who told the lay minister to initiate the dissolving procedure. So now I'm going to explain what is the dissolving procedure. According to Catholic canon law, if a consecrated host, for any reason, it falls to the ground or gets dirty or anything of that kind, that to the point that cannot be consumed neither by the faithful nor by the priest, at that point needs to be placed in a container with water. Usually what is used is the vasculum. The vasculum is a small container usually made of silver, in which the priest the priests or the priest who has celebrated Mass washes his hands to get rid of any small particle of the Eucharist that could have been left on his fingers. So he told the initiated disorderly procedure. This was on May 1st, 1992, which the lay minister did, and usually when it placed the vasculum of the container into the tabernacle. Then on morning of Friday, May 8th, which was 7 days later, Father Carlo Magno, the pastor, checked the container for the first time and was astonished that he spoke with the other priests that were living at the same time in the parish. That one was Father Eduardo Perez Dal Lago, and the second was Father Eduardo Graham, and the third was not a priest, was a deacon, Marcelo Pablo Tomaino. So he realized that those two fragments of host had started turning into something else. This is Father Eduardo Perez Dal Lago, who was 30 at the time of the miracle of 1992. He looks no more 30, so I don't know exactly how old is in this picture, but definitely is not 30 here. And so the host started turning into something that looked like reddish and seemed like a biological material, was left in that container until the water evaporated completely, and so it stuck to the bottom of this container until at a certain point it got detached by itself. And it was placed into this very small, called like a reliquary. Consider that is the thumbnail of the nail of a thumb, probably. So to have an idea of the how small, and that was what was left. You see this reddish, what looked like a scab. So it was about an inch long and maybe half an inch or maybe even less in width. It was at that point was placed inside that container. Now I shall skip over the three minor Eucharistic miracles in between 1992 and 1996, and then I go to 1996. This is Father Alejandro Peset. At the end of the 7 p.m. Mass on Sunday, August 18, 1996, Father Alejandro Peset was informed that there was a host at the base of a crucifix and a candle holder, the one that I showed you earlier. You see there the crucifix? You see it?
I see one on the wall.
Yeah, that on the wall.
Yeah.
So there was a host at the base of the crucifix in a candle holder. Probably that host had been placed there with some kind of desecrating intentions. And the priest noticed that the host was too dirty and dusty, so he could neither consume nor could, of course, would not give it to anyone else. So he asked Emma Fernandez, a 77-year-old lay minister of the Eucharist, to immerse in water and to start that dissolving procedure that I already mentioned for the miracle of 1992. So that was August 18th, and it was a Sunday. So on August 26th, so 8 days later, Mrs. Fernandez, the lay minister, noticed that something strange in the round glass container in which she had left the host, and mentioned to Father Peset, who then transferred the container to tabernacle in the rectory. So so again, that is the right nave. Probably you see halfway along the nave on the right hand side. This first statue looks like a Pietà, but then after the second bay on the right, there is a crucifix. This is Emma Fernandez giving her testimony of the case to the person whose a section of the face is shown there with the mustache. That is Dr. Castagnon Gomez. that is recording the testimony of Mema Fernandez. So what was going on was that this is what appeared after 8 days. That was the glass container. That was the host. What started the host started looking like. The water was kind of no more that clear. There was some reddish material. There was some darker. Can you still see? Can you see my cursor? Not too much.
It's right underneath the top view.
Yeah, so you see there were some dark globules that look like blood clots. And this is what it will look like from the side. So you see kind of almost the left side of the host started to look like reddish, some kind of biological material, where the right one was still white. So Father Peset transferred the host to this tabernacle inside the rectory. So to be sure that no one could, except the priest, could have access to it, could manipulate but nonetheless, the process didn't stop. You see, in this picture taken later, at this point, there is no more white material to be visible. The whole host and the whole world the whole host turned red. And at this point, we after about a month, that material, reddish material, was transferred into a vial with distilled water. Just to give you an idea, that to place biological material, so a tissue or some cell, whatever, into distilled water, I'm sure that the priest had no idea of that. That was the worst possible substance into which to place a biological material, like a tissue or whatever. Because for a process of osmosis, usually a normal biological material tissue would have absorbed the distilled water into it, and the cells would have burst and rupture, and that would have led to the autolysis, to the self-destruction of the biological tissue. That is not what happened. It was was placed into this vial with distilled water, and it remained there for 3 years until 1999. In 1999, as Kevin mentioned in July, here Dr. Castañón Gomez appears on the scene. So Dr. Castañón Gomez was this specialist in investigation of Eucharistic miracles, or statues who were bleeding, or people who claim to have stigmata, and so on. So these are pictures. So this is on the top left. This is Dr. Castañón Gomez. This is the head of Dr. Castañón Gomez with the gloves, also like a surgeon, who is taking a sample, a very small sample, from the Eucharist miracle of 1992, the one you see on the top right-hand corner, and placing that, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, he placed in a small test tube. You see there on the top left side, this is 8 de mayo de 1992, the 8th of May 1992, and 5 de octubre de 1999, October 5th, 1999. So the first date was the date when the miracle occurred, and the lower date when the samples was taken. So Castañón Gomez took the sample in the 5th of October 1999. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I think a couple slides back, when you were showing us the red stuff, the material on this, I know that skeptics like Kevin will come back and say, this is actually comparable to a mold or a fungus known as blood fungus. What's your counter to that?
Okay. I'll tell you what in the case of Buenos Aires, nothing of this kind was occurred. But in Sokółka, some critics accused the scientists who had examined the specimens that the Eucharist mirror had been caused by Serratia marcescens. Serratia marcescens is a bacterium that produces, especially on bread, a kind of red pigment that can be confused with the blood, but it's very easily detectable. So, and that was not detected in Sokółka, and for what I know, was definitely not detected in Buenos Aires. Plus, you know, with all due respect, but Kevin said he kind of expressed the need of being very accurate and very precise in the case of Kevin, making a diagnosis or an assessment of mold just from a picture. I don't think is accurate science. That's an assumption. You need to examine the material. No one can make an assumption just from a picture without having even look at it. Does it make sense?
Yep, I get what you're saying. All right, okay. Cool, thanks.
So this is Castañón Gomez, the gentleman on the top right-hand corner with the mustache still. I'll use the other picture. So you see that the bottom left corner, that is the small bottle with distilled water. And you see inside the reddish material, that is what had been the remaining, what was left of the Eucharistic mirror in 1996. And so there Castañón Gomez on the top right, examining that vial on the top and the bottom left, with Father Peset the back, examining with this suspicious gaze. And so he takes a sample from that vial, from that biological material, places it into a test tube, and this is the test tube that you see at the bottom left, at bottom right. You see the date, 26 of August, 27 de agosto del 1996, when the miracle occurred, and the 5 de octubre del 1999, the 5th of October 1999, when the sample was taken, was moved from that bottle with distilled water into the test tube. So moving forward, so the samples were sent first to a lab in California, then was sent to Dr. Lawrence, this gentleman here. Dr. Lawrence was a medical examiner with the Delta Pathology Associates in Stockton, California. I remember quite correctly that Kevin said it was sent, the sample was sent first to Argentina, and the doctor in Argentina said that it was skin tissue. So Kevin said, well, so it was skin tissue, was hard tissue. Well, it was not sent to Argentina, at least not the samples of 1996. It was sent to this Dr. Lawrence. It is Dr. Lawrence who said, well, it's a very degraded material. It's not easy to make an assessment. So he proposed an assessment that could be it could be epidermis, which is the most superficial layer of a human skin. We need to consider that then later, that it was sent to other experts in California. In Australia, because Dr. Castañón availed himself of the cooperation of two Australian people. One was Ron Tesoriero, who was an Australian lawyer, and Mike Willesee, who was an Australian TV personality. They were sent also to some experts in Australia and also to Linoli. The experts in Australia, some can kind of also, I think also confirmed the epidermis. The third one confirmed, made an assessment of the myocardial tissue. And then was also, at that point, also Rinoli was involved, who thought to see his assessment was myocardial tissue. Finally was sent to Zaghibi. With all due respect, when Kevin almost, I would say almost sarcastically said, "Oh, come on, they took the samples to the Zaghibi, and the Zaghibi realized that they were Catholics, so he said, well, this is myocardial tissue." Well, I'm sorry, this is another assumption, plus an assumption made in a sarcastic tone, which I respectfully do not accept. Zaghibi was not informed, was not told upfront about the origin of the slides. At the point that the material has been placed on slides to be examined on an optical microscope. This is a segment from the video that you also did watch, the one of 32 minutes, in which he started looking at the material and say, well, my specialty is the heart. This is human heart. It's a heart that the kind of the samples, the slides I can see when there are car accidents or when someone has been beaten on the chest, and this reminds me of Christ being scourged also on the chest. And or someone who has undergone a CPR, an incorrect CPR. This is someone who survived an infarction. They didn't die out of it and survived for a few days. By the way, that what sends shivers along the spine of Tesoriero and Willesee. The person was alive when the sample was taken. It's visible on the video. At that point, so Zaghibi said, "So what's the scoop?" Because they explained to him what was the origin of the material, and he said, "Are you sure this was preserved in water for 3 years and not kept in formaldehyde?" Formaldehyde is a substance that is used to preserve biological material, so tissues, parts of the body, or things of that kind. They confirmed no, it has been kept in. He said it's practically impossible. It would have undergone autolysis, that process I mentioned earlier, that by osmosis that the distilled water would be absorbed into the tissue, and the cells would have ruptured, and practically the tissue would have self-destroyed. And then you presented them to Kevin on July, and you had so gracious to send me a copy. That letter written by Zaghibi that confirmed his diagnosis. Finally, on March 17, 2006, Dr. Castañón Gómez, that is here, presented officially the conclusive report of the investigation started in 1999. So this was 7 years later, to Jorge Mario Bergoglio. Do you recognize who this guy is?
I have no idea who that is, no.
That is the present Pope of the Catholic Church. That is Jorge Mario Bergoglio, now AKA as Pope Francis. So
his face looks more, it's different. Okay, but
he's slimmer. He's slimmer there. Now he's a little bit more chubby. So
there we go.
It's him, I guarantee.
Do you mind? I wanted to ask you a quick question about the Zaghibi thing, because I agree with you. Even myself as a Protestant, I agree with you that it, based on everything I've seen about Zaghibi, it's improbable that he was committing fraud in the sense of just lying that this is heart. I think they actually gave him heart material, but I'm kind of curious. What about the option? Maybe there was some fraud in giving him the samples. They switched out what was the sample for actual heart material?
Kevin mentioned the issue of the chain of custody. When the samples were taken, so we are talking about the 5th of October 1999, there was a photographer, it was video recorded. So at least since the 5th of October 1999, there was a chain of custody, I would say, is kind of confirmed and certain. The point is between 1996 and 1999, when the host was placed, that biological material was placed into that small bottle with distilled water. But the priest to know of changing a biological material, replacing what was inside that small bottle, and where did they went to find the sample of? Where did they go? To the morgue, to the coroner's office? I think is way too much stretch. We are stretching the hypothesis a little bit too much. So I don't see. I cannot imagine that some priests to have the medical the capacity of knowing what was inside that bottle, and going somewhere else and finding some heart tissues elsewhere and placing to. I don't know. I think it's a little bit pushed too much. So
it's an implausible conspiracy theory, I guess.
In my opinion, absolutely. Absolutely.
Got it. All right. Yeah. Continue. Thanks.
I'm going to pass to. I'm sorry. I need to ask a courtesy. I need to go to the rest of my game. I'm sorry. I'll be super quick. I apologize.
No problem. All right. We will pick up in a couple minutes. But yeah, so in the link for anyone who's here, I have posted some of the links to the sources, some of the sources that Massimo has mentioned. So, for example, he mentioned the 30-minute video from the investigation that Zugby did. So I included the link in the live chat to that, as well as the official letter from Zugby where he outlines his investigation of that material. So take a look at those if you're interested in researching there. Yeah. Any questions from the audience so far? All right. Well, for Harry Stark, yeah, like I said, I'll ask Massimo your question about Marian apparitions. But if you're still in the audience, we did speak privately. He does believe in Marian apparitions. I'm not sure which ones, but like I said, I'll ask him at the end.
I'm back.
All right.
I apologize but I drank a smoothie. It was enormous.
No problem.
So anyway, now we move to 2006. We moved to Tixtla, Mexico. So this church that you see here is the church of St. Martin of Tours in Tixtla. Tixtla is a town in the southwest of Mexico, I think about 60 miles inland from Acapulco. It's the town that sometimes gets flooded. You see here, these are the big flood. The St. Martin of Tours is that church there at the end of the slide. You see at the end of the street. You see the church with the bell tower?
Yes, in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the 22nd of October 2006, so the Father Leopoldo Roque, who was the pastor of St. Martin of Tours, had organized a retreat, spiritual exercise retreat, and so this is the inside of the church. But on the 22nd of October, actually, since there were about 600 people, they didn't fit inside the church. They moved, I think, the celebration of the Mass across the street to the municipal auditorium. And so at the moment of the distributing the host, they called for, as a retreat master for the retreat, Father Leopoldo Raimundo Reina Esteban, who is a very well-known priest in Mexico. He was 50 at the time, so now would be I think 68, or a little bit, almost my age. I'm 69. And so they were distributing the Eucharist, the host, the Eucharist, and that there were two nuns that were helping with the distribution of the Eucharist. One of them was Sister Areli Marroquin. At some point, she had a line of people in front of her was distributing the Eucharist. She suddenly paused. And this is according to an eyewitness who apparently was the next person who was to receive the Eucharist before she stopped. So she was interviewed a few years later. According to her best recall, this is what she recalled, that she saw Sister Redi Marroquin. She paused. She returned to the altar with teary eyes and showed the ciborium to Father Agito, who was the retreat master, after kneeling and without uttering a word. So, and when I showed you the next slide, maybe you will understand why, because the next host that she was going to distribute, as you can see here in the picture, showed some reddish material, and I can see another picture of the same ciborium. The ciborium is the container where the hosts were preserved for the distribution. Father Agito, probably another priest would have acted with some kind of prudence and would have placed that ciborium in a tabernacle, would have requested instruction from the bishop and the local bishop. This is usually what is the normal procedure. It is the responsibility of a local bishop of the diocese in which an event like this one, a possible Eucharistic miracle occurs, to summon an investigation, and summoning experts and so on. But Father Agito didn't do that. Actually, he, as you can see here in this picture, he took the host and showed it and informed the congregation that a Eucharistic miracle had occurred. At which point, some people started crying, some other people applauded, and here again is Father Agito, the one on the left. He's more than 6 feet. He's more than 6 feet tall, so you can see he's quite high. He's quite tall. And the priest on the right is Father Leopoldo Roque. The reason why he decided to act it seems almost impulsively was that when he was a younger priest, and I think it was in the Dominican Republic, if I remember correctly, he had another event of that kind. And he had shown had shared with other priests, but then the local bishop told him to, with a decision that both in my opinion and the opinion of Franco Serafini was definitely horrible. The bishop told him to dissolve the host, like I mentioned when with Buenos Aires and the two Eucharistic miracles in Buenos Aires, and what is usually done when the host gets dirty. But because it was not dirty, there was some suspicion that was some reddish material of unknown origin. So he decided not to be prudent. He said there is Eucharistic miracles. As I said, some people started crying, some people started. So later, you see that what was reddish became darker, almost black. So the Eucharistic miracles occur on October 22nd, 2006. 3 years passed. So in 2009, here we have, this is Castagnon again, Dr. Castagnon, the one who had investigated Buenos Aires. And this one at the center is Monsignor Alejo Zavala Castro, who was the bishop of the local diocese of Chilpancingo. Castagnon was in the area, so he decided to approach Monsignor Zavala Castro, and he was cautious. So Castagnon proposed a protocol for the scientific examination of the specimen, and he accepted. So on Tixtla, the samples of the Eucharistic miracle of Tixtla of the 5 that this is the 3rd one, that and then there will be the 2 in Poland, is one that was studied the most extensively, and actually also the blood type was identified that was AB, like in Lanciano, like in the Pseudorama Oviedo, and on the Shroud. And so I know that has been said that in that video of 2013, sorry, excuse me, in the video of July, that the Eucharistic miracle of Tixtla has not been approved. It's not accurate. Actually, Monsignor Zavala Castro in 2013, he approved the miracle. The point is that once he retired for reached limits of age, his successor reopened the case. And now his successor has retired this year, I think, for reached limits of age. So at that point, the Vatican has to express the final evaluation. But so it had been approved, but then the follower of Zavala Castro reopened the case. So to say that it has not been approved, it's not exactly how things went. So there is a little difference. It was approved, but then the case was reopened by the successor. So so practically the human blood was found, that was type AB. There were cellular fibers belonging in all likelihood to myocardial tissue. So, and it was human DNA, but no genetic profile could be obtained. That means that this happened also in Buenos Aires, that once it was taken to the lab, the lab said, well, apparently here there should be the chance of extracting of the DNA, but then the markers didn't hook with the DNA. It was for some reason that it kind of I agree with Kevin. We said, well, said God could not. I disagree with what was the theory of Dane, who said that since it was the DNA of Christ, so was too complex, too elevated, so it could not be. I respectfully disagree with that theory. My theory is that somehow, if DNA had been evidence, it would be a too strong an evidence. It could be, at the point, it could be practically undeniable, to the point that could weaken the faith of people. And God wants us to make that is very clear what happened when Saint Thomas, the apostle, refused to believe in the resurrection of Christ unless he could see him and place his fingers in his wounds. And then Christ appeared to him. He did it and said, "Oh, my Lord and my God." And Christ said very clearly, now you believe because you have seen. Blessed are those who will believe without having seen. So God and Christ is God, wants us to make an effort of faith. We're not just, okay, everything is so evident, there is not, you don't need to any need for our faith to believe in the authority of God and the authority of the Christian revelation.
I think the way to say, like what you're saying there, is that God will always allow reasonable doubt for the skeptic or something if they want to have free will or something. Is that a good way of summarizing what you said?
No, not too much allowing the skeptic. As St. Thomas Aquinas said, for those who has faith, no proof is necessary. For those who has no faith, no proof is sufficient. So, in a certain sense, once we have faith, in a certain sense, we don't need the DNA evidence. On the other hand, for someone who has not faith, you can present all the evidence possible, and the person still. And I met people that kind won't believe anyway. So, does it make sense?
Fair enough. I admit I was just about to ask you that because but I was glad you kind of addressed this as an objection from Kevin. I will say it's a bit weird. Like, okay, so we can detect the DNA, but we can't get the full sequencing or something like that. Like, what? Why provide even the limited amount of DNA? Like, why not just kind of leave it out altogether?
Let me explain. Once, for example, I'll show some slides later. In the myocardial tissue that was found in these samples, in all these Eucharist mirrors, there are white blood cells, and white blood cells have the nuclei. Red blood cells have not the nucleus. So once they are formed, but they are put into circulation in the blood, the red blood cells are cells without the nucleus. Each red blood cell has not a nucleus, whereas white blood cells have a nucleus, and the largest amount of DNA in a human body is in the nuclei of the cells. There is some DNA in the mitochondria, the small organelles inside the cell for the production of energy, but the greatest amount of DNA in every cell is in the nucleus of every cell. So looking at the tissues from the microscope, it was evident there were white blood cells, and which is also that already is very unusual, because once someone draws blood out of the body, white blood cells doesn't survive. Zagby said no more than 15 half an hour. Lawrence, that medical examiner, said no more than 1 or 2 hours. But anyway, from 15 half an hour to an hour, 2 hours, but a very short amount of time, not 3 years like in Buenos Aires.
Fair enough. Okay, so, I have three further. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I have three further questions, believe it or not, after you finish answering.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this was one that someone wanted me to bring up a while back, but you mentioned that some of the blood has been shown to be AB, just like with the shroud and that sort of thing.
Yes.
I'm kind of curious. Dr. Kelly Kearse has done recent work showing that actually.
I heard that. I'm totally honest. I've not yet had the chance of reading his work. So I understand there is that, but I know that there is Pierluigi Baima Bollone, who is the forensic pathologist in Turin, who identified the blood type AB on the shroud, and he was not so convinced about Kelly Kearse. So as of now, I don't want to say I don't want to believe Carlo Acutis. I admit I've not yet had the chance to read his work, but I have some authoritative opinion of someone who identified the blood type on the shroud, and he was not so. I have not the chance. I have not the chance to speak with him. I have a friend of mine, Emanuela Marinelli, who is a shroud researcher who has written more than 20 books on the shroud, and she sent me some articles from Bologna. I have not yet the chance to read them, so a little bit of lagging behind on this side, but forgive me. So I admit that there is someone who, like Kelly Kearse, I've heard that he has presented this, has written at least one paper in which he disputes the issue that he says that old blood had the tendency to turn into AB.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm not forgive this small capacity of mine to answer this question.
No problem. No problem. Okay. Another question I've gotten, this one's from Kevin as a skeptic, and he kind of mentions like, well, look, we have all this human tissue and from organs apparently, and he says, well, these are all great candidates for radiocarbon dating. Why on earth has nobody carbon dated these and tried to see if we get a 2000 year date back in time?
Okay. The number one, for carbon dating, you need a set amount of material that is definitely greater than what Castagnon Gomez took in, what Linoli took in Lanciano, what Castagnon Gomez took in Buenos Aires, what Castagnon Gomez took in Tixtla. So number one is there would be too much distraction of material, and let's understand. I know that the skeptic, in a certain sense, I go by what he said. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that Kevin defines himself as an agnostic, although he was grew up in a Catholic family. Yeah. But at the same time, understand, he doesn't care if the whole specimen get destroyed. But let's try to put ourselves in the skin of people like the local bishop, or the faith of the people who believe in the real presence of the Eucharist, to destroy Eucharistic miracle for an issue of dating the sample. Well, the Catholics who are faith, as again, as St. Thomas Aquinas said, do not need the carbon 14 test. Are the skeptics requesting the carbon 14 test? I don't know if I'm making sense. So for the benefit of whom we would be requested to perform for the benefit of those who already believe, who don't need it, like someone like me. I don't need the carbon 14 test to believe in the Eucharist miracles. And for someone like Kevin, who seemed kind of reluctant to me to accept, probably, as again St. Thomas Aquinas said, for someone who does not have faith, no proof is sufficient. And then maybe say, well, still I'm not convinced.
Fair enough. All right. And last question before we can move on. This one's from someone new, and this is from KR. So first of all, they like you say, I took the bread and the cup just today. I 1000% believe in communion miracles. And they're asking, have you had any word on instantaneous healing manifestations that might be associated with the Eucharistic miracles? Do you think there are any healing accounts that are associated with these kinds of miracles?
I would say that probably I have not yet. This is another thing I'm lagging behind, but sometimes in doing research it takes a lot of time. So I'm sure that in the book by Carlo Acutis, the one in which there are classified and described all the 100 and more than 100 Eucharistic miracles, I'm sure that there must be some miracle that is connected with some miraculous healing. If I can say, although it's not miraculous, but I consider, in a certain sense, this is my personal life experience, I consider almost miraculous the fact that, having gone through 52 years depression that had not been treated by anything, and the fact that I've been a regular, I'm a daily communicant, so I go to Mass every day and receive the Eucharist every day, unless there are some issues, reason, either of health or work that I can't. But the fact that I consider the fact that, in spite of all the suffering I went through, the idea of committing suicide never crossed my mind, and the fact that I never had the temptation to have recourse to alcohol or street drugs, or I always kept to be active in the church, cooperate with it, to be of service to the community. It's not instantaneous, but in a certain sense, please take it with the benefits of the doubt. But I don't want to say it's exactly Eucharistic miracle, but it's somehow is I attribute it to the grace of God through my recurrent reception of the sacraments, in particular the Eucharist and the sacrament of reconciliation.
Fair enough. Oh, sorry, fair enough. Yeah, and he's just I was just saying the K is for Keith. So, all right, hello Keith. That's my brother's name, so great name. But yeah, thank you for answering that there, Massimo. And yeah, I'll let you. That's it for my questions. I'll let you continue on with your presentation.
Okay. We are almost 2 hours. Can I still go on? Because
of course, like I said, I'll give you as much time as you need to finish.
Okay. So now we go to Sokółka. This is Poland. Sokółka is a town about less than around 15 miles in the northeast of Poland, about 15 miles from the border with Belarus. This is the church. This is a picture of the Church of St. Anthony of Padua. On Sunday, October 12, 2008, the 8:30 Mass was celebrated by there were two priests, Father Filip Zrodowski, and he was helped by the distribution of Holy Communion by Father Jacek Ingielewicz. The Mass was a Tridentine Mass, so the Mass that is still celebrated according to the directions, the instruction developed at the Council of Trento. The one that Kevin mentioned, that he grew up in a family that follows the FSSP, the Fraternal Society of St. Peter. The Fraternal Society of St. Peter is a religious congregation which celebrates all the sacraments, so Mass, baptism, all the 7 sacraments that are celebrated in the Catholic Church according to the Tridentine rite, to the Council of Trento. So the point is that in the Tridentine, probably most of the people that are Protestant here have never been into to a Catholic Mass. At the moment of communion, the congregation goes to receive communion. Now it is allowed for the people of the congregation to receive the host in the hand before placing into the mouth. In the Tridentine Mass, that is not allowed. The people kneel at the railing that separates the church from the sanctuary, and when the priest comes, says a very brief formula, and then the person who is going to receive communion says Amen, opens the mouth, and the host is placed by the celebrant into the mouth of the recipient of the Eucharist. So there is no chance, no possibility in the Tridentine Mass, in the Latin Mass, which is celebrated in Latin, by the way, for receiving the host in the hands. Which, if I'm allowed a small interjection here, I was a lay Eucharistic minister. A lay Eucharist minister is someone who, not being a priest or a deacon, helps the celebrant to distribute Eucharist when on Sunday. My wife almost joked with me because at least I've been a Eucharistic minister for about, at least would say probably 15 years or more. During those 15 years, I would say that I had probably in the proximity of 10, 12 events in which I had to run after people who had received the host in the hand and were walking away without having placed the host into their mouth. So considering that there have been cases of hosts that have been found, like, for example, in the second miracle of Buenos Aires had been found in a candle holder, probably with the second host. Carol has the story of an adolescent who took the host, went outside the church and threw the host into a bush. I heard some stories of the host found on the pews. So I was always enormously careful about checking I would say with one eye, I was paying attention to the person in front of me, but with the corner of my other eye, I would check that the person that had received the host had placed it into the mouth. And when I realized that when those 10, 11, 12 occasions when I realized they didn't, I went after them, asked them very, very politely, very respectful, but can you consume, please? You don't know what those people are going to do. I heard, I never, of course, but I heard that there is a market for consecrated hosts to be used in black masses. So definitely it's something that I would not like going to happen. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yep. What's a black mass? I've never heard of that.
A black mass is a satanic mass. So it's a mass in which practically, of course, I never attended one. So
I would hope not.
I'm telling you what I've heard, I've read. That is a mass in which, Satan is said to be the ape of God. Satan does everything the opposite way that God does.
Yeah.
So in a black mass, allegedly, number one, for example, the crosses, the are placed upside down. The liturgy is read backwards. So everything is doing the opposite. And theoretically, I heard that they look for the black mass is something what is celebrated by worshippers of Satan. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Gotcha.
And I read that, as I said, I read it. So I don't know if really they do, but this is what that they look for consecrated hosts to be desecrated, placing in a chalice with excrement. So I'm just okay. So let's go back to Sokółka. So at the end, these two priests were celebrating distributing the host. One of them, luckily, was Father Jacek Ingielewicz, must have inadvertently dropped a consecrated host. So a lady who was kneeling at the altar rail to receive the Holy Communion touched the leg of Father Ingielewicz, and with the glance, without saying anything, looked toward the first step of the altar. So the priest noticed that the host there, so picked it up, and it was dirty. So he decided to immerse it in water in a vasculum, so in this container that he used for the priest to wash their fingers. And at the end of the Mass, Father Ingielewicz placed the vasculum inside the tabernacle. This was Monsignor Stanislav Niedzielko, who was the pastor of St. Anthony of Padua. So he was either informed of the incident or simply noticed the container with water inside the tabernacle, and told Sister Julia Dubowska, who was the sacristan, we should see her in the next slide, to pour the contents of the vasculum into a larger vase, a larger container, to add more water and to lock this container with the more added water and what was left of that dirty host into the safe of the sacristy, of which only the pastor, Father Niedzielko, and Sister Dubowska had the keys. So at 8 o'clock on the following Sunday, so this was October 19 now, Sister Julia Dubowska, the nun who you see here, opened the safe and smelled a bread fragrance. So she thought that it was from the complete dissolution of the host. But it was not the case. Part of the host had not yet dissolved and was partially covered by a solid red protruding stain resembling half an inch by 1 inch, 1 centimeter by 1.5 centimeter cloth. So on that same day, Sister Julia Dubowska photographed the glass container. Probably this is what she's showing here. So she's pointing the finger to the glass container with that what looks like a reddish stain there inside it. Do you see it? She's pointing the finger of the right hand. Do you see it? There is a reddish stain.
Yep, exactly. Little circle.
Yes. And then on that same day, Sister Julia Dubowska photographed the glass container with its content. So I don't know if she took only one picture. This is the picture I was able to find. So I took another picture just without And then on October 30th, the pastor, the Monsignor Giegeco, separated the entire solid portion made up of what was left of the unleavened bread. You see here on the top left corner of this reddish stain, there is what looks like whitish, yellowish. Do you see it there?
Yeah, like is that serum?
That was what was what was left of the host of the consecrated host. So anyway, the pastor took what was left of the unleavened bread and the mysterious cloth from the water, and with the small spoon placed it on the corpora. The corpora again is this a linen cloth that is here. You see on the background. You see here at the bottom. So on the top left there is this what was left of the host. Then there is this reddish material that was what seemed to have developed on top of the host, without making the water less clear. This is unlike in Buenos Aires. And here at the bottom, you see there is there are two arms of an embroidered cross that was embroidered on the corpora. It's not anything to do with the reddish material of the miracle. You see the bottom arm of the cross and the left arm of the cross. The right arm of the cross is completely gone. It's completely covered by that reddish material, and at the top arm of the cross is just a section of it. Did you see it? Can you see it?
I see exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So then at that point, the Curia of Bialystok decided to involve two professors of the University of Bialystok. One was this lady here, Maria Zbieta Sobianet-Lotowska. She, at least at the time, was an anatomical pathologist or an histopathologist. And the other one was Stanislav Sulkowski. Professor Sobianet-Lotowska, she's the one who took the samples. The sample, I think one sample divided in two parts. She kept one for her and one for Sulkowski, her colleague. They worked both at the University of Bialystok, but they didn't work in the same department. Sobianet-Lotowska, the female professor, she knew what was the origin. She took the sample. Sulkowski was kept unaware of it. She was kept in the blind. But they came to the same conclusion. They both came to the same conclusion. The sample material was myocardial tissue, but the second element was there were pathological signs such as segmentation and fragmentation were present in the muscle fibers. So non-medically speaking, these are signs of a suffering heart muscle tissue. Muscle tissue coming from a suffering heart. To the point then, but then, so the miracle was approved, and this is the pastor finally bringing the corporal with the stained corporal with what was left of the in procession. Two interesting anecdotes about. One is that, as I mentioned earlier, when you asked me about with mold, there were some critics here in Sokółka that presented the accusation that the Eucharistic miracle had been caused by Serratia marchescens, which is this bacterium which can produce a reddish or red pigments, especially on bread. Both Sobianet-Lotowska and Sulkowski were indignated. They say, how can people make such statements without having any idea of the material, without having analyzed the material at all, and without having any idea of how the material was analyzed. And another anecdote that there were, this is almost ridiculous. There were a group of atheists who actually presented a report to the local law enforcement, the local authority, claiming that, well, here there is some material coming from a heart, a human heart. Someone must have been killed. So they presented a report for a murder. Well, to make long story short, well, the local authorities said, well, no one has gone missing, so case closed.
Well, technically there was a murder, but it was 2,000 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. No, but to see when there are skeptics or people who want to be obstinately against, they can find the most absurd ways of doing it. So, anyways, so this is the chapel where the so I'll show the next. So this is the reliquary where with the small corporal with that reddish material, and it is preserved in a chapel where there is a tabernacle at the bottom, that box with the reliquary in the middle that is there, and then on top they place the monstrance with the regular consecrated host for Eucharistic adoration. So people kneel for the Eucharistic adoration, kneel also to the Eucharistic miracle. So they found a very Solomonic or a very religiously politically correct decision on how to expose the Eucharistic miracle. So there will be no problem with why people kneel in front of Eucharistic miracle and so on. So they solved the problem. Finally, so so here this is the parish of Saint Hyacinth in Legnica. We are still in Poland, but now we are almost on the opposite part of Poland. Here, Legnica is close to is on the southwestern part of Poland, that is close to Germany. Actually, until Second World War was part of Germany, but then after Second World War, because of Stalin's request, part of Poland was practically moved some miles to the west. And so Legnica, which was the name of the German town, became Legnica in Poland. So on the morning mass of December 25th, 2013, and the morning mass, not the Vigil Mass, the evening before, a priest by mistakenly dropped a host, but in this case he realized that he had dropped the host and didn't need to have someone making him notice it. And also in this case, the host got dirty. He didn't feel like consuming it, so place it also again into a container with water to dissolve. I think I forgot. I started explaining why this process of dissolution. This process of dissolution is that once you leave a host, even a consecrated host, that so theoretically, according to Catholic faith, contains the really, truly, and substantially the body and blood of Christ. Once the host dissolves, you keep it in water for 10, 15, 20 days at the most, the bread dissolves completely. At that point, according to Catholic teaching, the real presence of Christ is no more in existence. Christ is no more present because the bread is no more there. So at that point, the water can be discarded, but not discarded into a regular sink that goes into the drain. Get discarded in a special sink in the sacristy of a church that is called the sacrarium. Practically the water goes down directly into the earth, not into a drain. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So then about a few days later, when there was an island of reddish material which appeared on the host. The host is floating in water, as you can see. Then a few days later, that island of material got detached from the host, and this is a little bit greater magnification. Then further few more days, and at this point you see the host has almost completely dissolved. At least has started to become like it has dropped to the bottom of the container, but that reddish island is still there. and here even more magnified, to the point that it was taken with a spoon and dropped on a small corporal. And you see, actually, it looked like even just the shape of that material looks like a small heart. For maybe you can see better on this other picture. So at that point, it was decided by the local religious authority to take, I think, I don't remember, 14 or 16 micro samples, and actually for to use as control, they also made analysis also on wine that, of course, had not been consecrated from the same bottle, water that was from the same faucet, and hosts of the same batch that were, of course, not consecrated, to see if they could, for any reason, they could produce the same result. But so the analysis were carried out at the University of Wrocław first, and then at the University of Szczecin later, and finally in 1916 this was the press conference in which the Eucharist Miracles was officially acknowledged, and now it is preserved in this reliquary. Where you see that reddish material has kind of retired a little bit. It's not as a little bit smaller, but nonetheless, it's still there. So this is as far the history of the Eucharistic. Now, if you don't, are there questions here? But otherwise, I get into the scientific aspect of it.
There's just kind of general questions, so I think that can wait till the end. So yeah.
Okay. So one thing that was found in all these samples, that one was that there were clear signs of fragmentation and segmentation of the heart muscle fibers, especially in the better preserved Sokółka and Legnica tissues. I'm going to explain, to show you the slides, and I explain what is fragmentation, and then there was considerable infiltration by white blood cells in the tissues of Buenos Aires and Tixtla. So let's start with Buenos. These are samples these are the slides from Buenos Aires. When it says a considerable, I'll go back. At the bottom, number 2, there was considerable infiltration by white blood cells. You can see here, these are 2 different slides. I'm sorry, but I took a picture from a book, and it looks like a bit slanted, but that is the best I can do. What looks, these things so these reddish, long, what look like, that is myocardial fibers, fibers from a heart, from heart tissue. Here, these are the slides that I'm quite confident that the one that Dr. Lawrence had difficulties identifying, because as you can see here, the fiber has lost what is called the striation. They look like a kind of a solid pinkish. Definitely, there are no lines that run along the length of the fibers. Whereas there are these what looks like coffee grains. Those are the white blood cells that as Zagby said, when the samples were taken, the person was still alive. So as I said, both Lawrence, the first doctor, the one from Pathology Associates of Stockton in California, and Zagby said the white blood cell will not remain alive more than 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes once extracted. Lawrence said 1-2 hours at the most. But anyway, it's very small amount of time. And Lawrence is the one that said I had difficulty analyzing the sample, because this is the sample had been kept for 3 years in distilled water without bursting, without undergoing autolysis. So it was not in a very good condition of preservation, as I said. But the infiltration relates to the white blood cells. So this is myocardial tissue, but white blood cells do not normally belong in myocardial tissue. White blood cells usually migrate from the blood to areas where there has been either inflammation or a wound or trauma. So the fact that there were here infiltration of white blood cells indicated that was a heart that somehow has some kind of pathological condition. So far, so good?
Yep.
Okay. The next one is not a slide from none of the Eucharistic miracles, but is a slide from an atlas of histopathology that is used by students or even professionals to identify the samples they have under the. But so this is a case of, you see them at the bottom. This is from an Italian atlas of histopathology. You see infarto miocardico acuto, acute myocardial infarction. You see those black dots? Those are all white blood cells. This is totally soaked with white blood cells, and what you see there are the myocardial fibers, the fibers of the heart. The next one, this is a slide from Legnica, and this is a slide. I don't know if it's a little bit more visible. You see this is the length of a fiber. But along the length of a fiber, you see there are some lines along the length of the fiber. That is what is called the striation of the myocardial tissue, the myocardial fibers.
You're talking about like the white lines?
Yeah, those white lines that run along the. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah, but I'm just not sure if you're in the right place. Like it's right now, it's over a white line. Okay, now you're off.
No. Okay, yes. So there is this white line here. There is another one here. So those are the striation.
Okay.
Now, what is important here is not too much the striation. What is called the fragmentation. You see these cuts. It seems that it is a piece of flesh that has been chopped in pieces. You see this one piece to the left, then one next to it, then one next to it. Then there are four pieces. Definitely, they seem to have been cut one from the other. Do you see it?
Yeah.
And then if you look at the top of, I'm trying to use the cursor, but it seems that the cursor for some reason doesn't work with you. At the top of the larger fragment, there is another small fragmentation there. I don't know, you see there?
It's like a little speck. There's like two dots, right? Yeah.
No, not two dots. Along the reddish material, not the two dots above it. Along the reddish material, there is like a small cut there, on the upper part, the upper edge.
Yeah, your mouse is off, but I see what you're talking about. Right in the middle, it looks like
right in the middle, there is a small cut that looks like vertical to the slide. That is another example of fragmentation. Sorry.
Gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Now I'll skip to another slide of an histopathological atlas. So it's not a sample but to give you what fragmentation is. This is from an atlas. You see, it seems that there are all pieces have been chopped in pieces.
Yep.
That is a fragmentation. That is myocardial tissue, but is a myocardial tissue that has undergone fragmentation. And that is the kind of sample that you find in a suffering heart, and a suffering heart that in particular, in the next slides, has in the case of what is called the Takotsubo syndrome, which is, now I read it and then I explain, so don't get shocked. Myocardiopathy due to catecholaminic stress. So myocardiopathy, myo means is a prefix used for myocardial tissue. Myocardiopathy, cardio means heart, pathy means some pathological, some disease, some syndrome that affects the muscle of the heart. So myocardiopathy due to catecholaminic stress. So this is a kind of suffering that you find in people who are either close or have had a heart infarction, but not the regular one that you find practically 90% of the infarctions, that is caused usually by too much fat in the diet, too high blood pressure, diabetes. Those kind is the kind of infarction that is caused by too high levels of stress. The catecholaminic stress, the catecholamines are adrenaline and noradrenaline, which in normal levels give us some, I need the shot of adrenaline to feel a little bit more perkier, or for me, I don't know, I need the shot of adrenaline to give a better presentation. But when it becomes the level of catecholamines, people undergo very high levels of stress for a long time, that huge amount of catecholamines are toxic for the heart and cause this syndrome, this called takotsubo. Takotsubo, a Japanese word. Tako means the octopus. Tsubo means a jar. The takotsubo is a jar that is used by Japanese fishermen to catch octopuses. You see the drawing here on the top left corner.
Yep.
You see there is and here on the right hand side, at the bottom on the right hand side, you see that is a picture of a jar that is used by Japanese fishermen to catch the octopuses. So you can see that there is the body of the jar is larger, but then the neck is narrower. So usually the octopus gets into the jar and finds itself comfortable, and then the fisherman pulls the jar up and catch the octopus. Why takotsubo Japanese syndrome? Because the Japanese pathologists were the first one to describe this kind of syndrome. And why this picture? Because if you look at this is an image from the one above the jar. It's a heart for someone who suffers from takotsubo stress. You see, when especially the left ventricle is the chamber of the heart that when contracts pushes the blood out through the aorta to the whole body, whereas the right ventricle, when it contracts, pushes the blood to the lungs to be oxygenated. But so usually it's the left ventricle when it contracts. Doesn't contract completely. One part, that is the one here to the left, contracts. The other part you see to the right remains kind of dilated. This is the kind of imaging evidence that you find in people who suffer from myocardiopathy due to catecholamic stress. But as I said, it's not what you find in the 90% of the infarctions. Because if you look here, to the left-hand side at the bottom, you see there are two pictures at the bottom. You see on the left, when the left ventricle dilates in the diastole, and in the diastolic phase, and on the right-hand side, when it contracts in the systolic phase, you see one part contracts, but one part remains dilated. And at the top of those two pictures, there are three pictures of coronary arteries of people who suffer from this syndrome, which you can see are not clogged. So usually when a coronary artery get clogged, that is what causes an infarction in the 90% of the case of infarction. In the case of takotsubo myocardiopathy due to catecholaminic stress, you don't have clogged arteries, to the point that in certain cases people can notice that it's possible to recover from this kind of syndrome. But in other cases, there can be complication. One complication is the so-called hemopericardium. The hemopericardium is practically a syndrome in which under a too elevated amount of stress and practically anatomically, the heart is surrounded by a membrane that is called the pericardium. in a complication of Takotsubo syndrome, practically the heart ruptures. It is as though, speaking in lay terms, a crack forms especially in the wall of the left ventricle that goes through the whole wall of the heart, or the left ventricle. At that point, the blood gushes out, and as you can see here, so the top left image, you see the crack in the rupture that forms in the heart. You see at the point that the blood gushes out, it fills the pericardium. Fills the pericardium, and causes what is called the cardiac tamponade. A cardiac tamponade means that all that blood has gushed out and filled the pericardium prevents the heart from keeping beating, and the person dies. And usually people who die of hemopericardium die releasing a loud scream. So does it remind anything? Someone who died after releasing a loud scream? In the three Gospels, the synoptic, not in John, all Matthew, Mark, and Luke talk that Christ before dying released a loud scream. Said some with a loud voice. Now, go ahead.
Just a quick follow-up. I'm just kind of curious, because I'm into the Shroud of Turin. Is there any evidence of this kind of syndrome on the Shroud Man as well?
That is what I'm going to.
Okay, I will shut up and let you go then. Sorry.
That is going on into the lower two lower drawings. So if a person dies of hemopericardium, remain horizontal or on a bed, or falls to the floor and dies, blah blah, it's one thing. But a person who dies of hemopericardium and remains vertical, and according to the studies of the Spanish Center of Syndonology, who examined with the mannequin, examined the position which Christ remained with the sudarium, about the sudarium, they came to the conclusion that Christ remained for about an hour in vertical position after having died. So if someone dies of hemopericardium, has the heart that has been, strike that, the pericardium has been filled with blood, but the person is vertical, remains vertical after dying, at that point it's possible that the blood starting settling, with the red cells starting settling at the bottom of the pericardium and leaving in the upper part the serum. So once you see here, there is a drawing of the lance of the centurion pierce the chest and possibly pierce the pericardium. At that point, what came out first, according to what St. John said in chapter 19 of his gospel, blood and water came out. The blood were practically the red blood cells had started to get deposited at the bottom of the pericardium. And what was left above was the serum. Of course, St. John the Evangelist was not, like as St. Luke, a doctor, so he just said blood and water. But actually, it was the red blood cells at the bottom that came out first, and then the serum at the top. It was not water, but serum at the top. Does it make sense?
Yep, I'm getting it.
There is one caveat. I told at least two cardiologists. I inquired, because I had heard from in a lecture by a doctor that in order to have a hemopericardium, it's in the vast majority of cases you need to have had already a former infarction. So I asked a doctor. I attended the International Shroud Conference in Pasco, Washington State in 2017. There was Dr. Piero Pescetelli, who was an Italian cardiologist, who presented the possible theory that Christ could have died of hemopericardium. But then I asked him specifically, but is it possible that Christ could have had the infarction maybe during the agony in the Garden of Gethsemane, or immediately after, because all the stress and the beating and so on? He said, to say the truth, and then die of hemopericardium on Friday at 3 p.m. on the cross. He said he was not so prone to think that could be too much possible. There is a at this point. There was a French scholar, her name was Annie Jobert, that based on the study of another Jewish scholar presented a theory that actually the agony in the Garden of Gethsemane, based on certain religious calendars in the Jewish tradition of the time, the agony in the Garden of Gethsemane didn't occur on Holy Thursday, but occurred actually on Tuesday. If that had happened on Tuesday, at that point there would be enough time. He told me very clearly, and so I present you this caveat. I like two pieces that issue of the hemopericardium, because it has also a theological implication that God loved us of such an infinite love that his physical heart was not able to contain it and burst and ruptured. So it has not only an anatomical, physiological, pathological component, but there is also a theological component. Out of honesty, since I'm an honest person, I would like to say that this is what a cardiologist told me. And I also asked Franco Serafini. He too was not so super convinced. So I present to you and then try to make a decision. I don't know, informed or not. I don't know if I'm throwing too much information to you, but.
Well, so I did want to just follow up here because I think, as you'll know, I've had medical experts on my show, like Dr. Joseph Bergeron.
No, I was not aware of it. So no, I didn't know.
Okay, so I've had a couple medical experts, and even my friend Gary Habermas, he's kind of posted it in a medical journal, a table of all the scholars. If you don't mind, I can just kind of quickly show it on my screen.
Go ahead.
So keep sharing your screen, but I'm going to share my screen too now. And if you want to come to the internet, come to the studio.
What do we need to do?
Okay. That's okay. Yeah, I won't mess you up then. I'll just show the audience. But he has a table of different scholars.
You're bringing up.
Yeah. So I'm sharing my screen now, and he's got a table saying like there are different ways that medical experts think Jesus died on the cross.
You're bringing up the.
What? I'm showing it right now, but
let me stop sharing. Okay. Okay. I see. Okay. I see your table. Okay. Let me enlarge it. So. Okay. Yes. So scholarly view. Oops.
There you go.
Okay. Yes.
So the point that I was getting at, you can see that medical experts have disagreements as to what was it that caused Jesus' death. Some say it was shock. Some say cardiovascular trauma, as you were going on. Asphyxiation is the most popular. So I'm just kind of curious. Do you think that these Eucharistic miracles, because we are finding evidence of trauma in the heart, and also the evidence from the chest wound on the shroud, do you think that that's enough to kind of definitively say what was the cause of death?
Okay, let me express my knowledge about. I would definitely reject both asphyxiation and chiefly asphyxiation with secondary factors for a fundamental reason. If Christ, the theory that Christ died of asphyxiation was quite popular, maybe. I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, maybe 50. Unfortunately, the data from the gospel doesn't match the diagnosis. Because if Christ had died of asphyxiation, because of the lack of oxygen going to the brain, he would have progressively lost lucidity. So he would have started progressively losing capacity of saying things that made sense. and then would have kind of slipped into a coma and died, and at that point would have died of asphyxiation. According to all the four Gospels, Christ was lucid until the last second. So that I definitely would reject both asphyxiation and chiefly asphyxiation with secondary factors. The cardiovascular trauma practically is the one into which is the one in whose category, in this category, the hemopericardium would fit. Regarding, go ahead.
I noticed it's interesting. Zagaby doesn't go for that. He says it was shock.
Zagaby proposed actually three kinds of shock. One was hypovolemic shock, that is the shock caused by a loss of fluids, blood and sweat. Traumatic shock, and the third one, I forgot the third one, but so it's a combination of shocks. Okay. Coagulopathy, I'm not so sure. I'm not too sure about, and syncope also. The last three, I don't know. My point is that what I like of the hemopericardium, that the hemopericardium could explain medically the description of John in chapter 19 of the centurion piercing the chest and blood and water coming out. I definitely don't think that the mixture of okay, I'm sorry, let me go back. Can I go back to my
Yep, go ahead and bring that up.
Just a second. Window.
Sorry, I know I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm trying to.
No. I bring me. My wife has a joke to say if you actually is mine, but it's my. If someone is suicidal, would be enough for the person to ask Massimo, talk me about the shroud. I can shroud the person to death. So be warned. I can talk about the shroud for hours, but I don't know if you would resist.
Well, we've got that. We've got a future show, so yeah, we will be talking for hours.
I know. Let me try to go.
So it's present again if you're on the studio.
Oh yeah, present. I am on present. So window, entire screen. I need to let me found. Okay, Carol, I need help. She's my wife is much more technologically savvy than I am. Okay. Okay. I think I'm back. Okay. Oh, here
it's popping up.
Okay, perfect. So I would say that the cardiovolemic, the hypovolemic shock and the traumatic shock. I don't know.
We're seeing it in presenter's mode, like we're seeing for some reason. So if you want to like exit and then go back into presenter's mode.
So.
Oh yeah, it may. Well, it's like we're just seeing the background, so you may have to like. Get out of that and then go to the slide and then go into presenter's mode.
So get out of, and then go back to presenter mode.
So share your screen again. So that's all the same.
So present, window. Where is the window? Top present. I'm in present. And what is window? I'm sorry. So I'll share screen. Share screen. Select the tab to share. Window. Sorry, window. And sorry.
And get out of presenter's mode in your slide.
Do you see the?
Nothing's coming up in the queue.
Slideshow. Just a second.
I knew it was. I shouldn't have shared my screen. That was my.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Let me try to go back. Presenter view. Can you see it now?
Nope. Nothing's popping up.
Did you share screen?
I did. Let me try to.
So in your, let's start with this. With your slides, can you get out of presenter's mode and just make it like the slides?
Yes.
And you remember which slide you're on, like what number?
Yes, I know what slide I am. Yes.
Okay. And then once it's back to normal, then share your screen, like click the present.
So I am on the slides now. And now what do I do?
Just share your screen. So click on present. This is the share screen.
Window. Share.
There it is.
Okay. Can I go to presenter mode now?
Now go to presenter's mode, and I think it'll work.
Does it work now?
Perfect. Yep. We're back.
Okay. So I was saying that I don't think, as I said, I'm not a doctor, although I attended medical school for 2 years. I worked as a medical interpreter for more than 20 years. I would say that very likely that would not be able to explain the description of the piercing of Christ by the chest by the centurion with the blood and water coming out of it. You can ask him. I'm not saying I'm an absolute expert, so no one will be able to debunk my theory, but that is what I would say based on my knowledge. Are you there?
Yep. Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. Like I said, Gary Habermas goes for this as well.
So now here I'm ending the scientific part. Now I'm getting into the theological and symbolic implications of the heart of Jesus. Are there questions before I get to the part?
Okay. Yeah, I think we have some general questions. So let me ask. So the first one with the science, this one comes from Kevin. It's a skeptical one, but it's general, right? He mentions, like, compared to the Shroud, there are hardly any. In fact, I think he says there are no peer-reviewed journals that publish these, whereas with the Shroud, we have dozens of peer-reviewed journals. So, well, if the evidence is so comparable and it's really good, why isn't it published in peer-reviewed journals?
Regarding Eucharistic miracles?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm presenting my theory. The church is not neither a scientific organization nor a commercial organization. So once there is an alleged Eucharistic miracle, what the church want to be sure of that is not a forgery or a hoax. Once there is evidence provided by some expert, of course, qualified and credentialed experts, that is not a hoax, at that point, the church that doesn't need, I need to launch onto the market a new drug for such and such disease or blah blah. It doesn't need to commercialize some product, blah blah. The church just want to be sure that there is not a forgery of that can negatively impact the what allegedly is Eucharistic miracle, and maybe could be not. So once the church is assured by experts, so this is why is the responsibility and the authority of the local bishop to summon a commission of experts. Once the experts provide an answer to the bishop that, and the experts, of course, the experts. For example, like in Sokółka, Sobianero, Tosca, and Surkowski, or Castagnon and Lawrence first and Zaghi second, they have no authority of saying this is a Eucharistic miracle. The only thing I can say, we don't see anything that seems a human artifact has been made by human hands. And or in the other hand, when, for example, like in Sokółka, where the host intermingled in a way that science could not explain with the reddish material. But at that point, what is the need for the church to publish a scientific paper? I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense. I know, again, from the point of view of the skeptic, well, they don't publish scientific papers, so this is show that the church is somehow in bad faith or doesn't want to, Again, try to get into the skin, into the shoes of a bishop. Again, he doesn't need. He's not. The purpose is not to sell a drug on the market or sell any other kind of product on the market, to get some kind of commercial benefit out of it. So once the bishop is told by reputable, credentialed experts that what has been analyzed is legitimate. If I were a bishop, why to have the undergo a carbon 14 test with further destruction of material that could be a human myocardial tissue from Jesus Christ? Well, I don't know. Try to get in my position also. So I'm a Catholic, so I don't need the scientific peer review paper or a carbon 14 test to believe in Eucharistic miracles. Once I know that Eucharistic miracle has been examined by a commission of experts appointed by the local bishop, so the certain protocol has been followed, and the chain of custody has been also put into effect. So, am I making sense?
Yeah, gotcha. Fair enough. Okay. The last question related to the science. So it's kind of a follow-up. This one comes from someone from the Faith Unaltered audience there, and they were kind of saying, you know how you respond. Remember, I asked you about the possibility of fraud, not at the level of the investigators, but when they took the sample, and you said, well, that would require a conspiracy theory. They've wanted me to follow up with you, and they're saying, well, what does Massimo think about all the frauds that actually did take place in history? Like, even Cheryl White, who I think you'll know, admits that.
I know Cheryl White. I know Cheryl White. Yes.
So, like, throughout the medieval period and into the Renaissance, throughout history, there have undeniably been a lot of purposeful fraud. So this person saying, is it really as implausible as you're saying that some kind of fraud could take place there?
Well, let me be honest and sincere. When I see claims that in certain places there is the one in the Middle Ages relics like the skin excised from the penis of Jesus when he was circumcised, or some relics, some little relics where there was the milk of the Blessed Mother, where although I'm a very, very devout Catholic, but then I would have serious doubts, even without any scientific examination, to believe to these claims. But when there is a miracle, okay, Lanciano probably is the one that dates back is the oldest that dates back to the almost 1300 years. But when there is Buenos Aires, 1992 and 1996, Tixtla, 2006, Sokółka, 2008, Legnica, 2013, and there was apparently a very quite accurate chain of custody, because in Buenos Aires, when Father, especially the mirror of 1996, when he saw that Emma Fernandez, the lay minister, made him notice that host was turning into something, he brought into a tabernacle inside the rectory. So to be sure that at that point there were only the priests in the rectory that could have, in case we want to go for the theory of fraud, of fraudulent human intervention, could have intervened. In the case of Sokółka, the pastor told Sister Dubowska to take the container with the water from the tabernacle that was in the church, where someone, to the safe of the sacristy, of which only him and Sister Dubowska had the keys. Legnica somehow. So I don't see these so many chances of intentional or fraudulent alteration on the part of the priest, of the fundamental of the clergy, and
Fair enough. Awesome. All right, cool. So I do have other questions, but the next one's kind of related to theology. Did you say that your next section's theology, or
yes? No, go ahead. So let me give me some more appetite for theology. So that is one of the parts I love the most, theology. So.
All right, cool. So this one is this one is a question from me, actually. So
yeah, go ahead.
I'm kind of saying let's grant everything you're saying here about these Eucharistic miracles. That seems like it's kind of contradicting the doctrine of transubstantiation, then, because the doctrine itself says that it isn't one substance changes into the other substance, but the accidental properties are retained. But it seems like with the Eucharistic miracles that the accidental properties are going away, and we're just left with skin or heart tissue or blood. So that's not actually supporting the transubstantiation doctrine proper. Does that make sense?
Yes. No. Well. Okay. I understand. Actually, so the Council of Trento defined that in a consecrated host, Christ is really, truly, and substantially present. That means body, blood, soul, and divinity. The fact that the species somehow change, but they do not alter the divinity of Christ. The divinity. This is something that also Saint Thomas Aquinas in the Summa Theologica mentioned, that cannot be perceived by the human eye. So what somehow is perceivable are changes in the accidents, but not in when we say Christ is really, truly, and substantially present. Of course, we mean because there were some at the time of Saint Thomas Aquinas, there were some people who claimed that practically the blood, excuse me. The
body and blood.
the blood and the blood that or the blood and flesh that sometimes is visible in the Eucharist mirror is kind of hiding under the species. Saint Thomas Aquinas said no. Number one, this would be confusing the kind of a lie. Christ is really, truly, substantially present in a spiritual way. Not physically, according to real flesh and real blood. And I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, yeah, I get what you're saying. But I think my question is that, like, according to the doctrine, the accidental properties remain, right? Like when
yes.
But when you're looking at the Eucharistic miracles, the accidental properties are not remaining; they're going away, or being replaced with accidental properties of flesh and blood or something. So like it's not the same as the doctrine. So isn't that kind of a contradiction? Or yeah, that's the question, if that makes sense.
If you want, I can get the now I don't have off the top of my head. I can take the because I know exactly what it is. The book of St. Thomas Aquinas at the Summa Theologica, where he talks about this fact of the changes that don't affect the. Do you want me, or since if it is only for you, I can look later and clarify later. Either
sure.
Yeah, here I am. My secretary, my wife, my lovely wife, has brought me the book. So
yeah.
Just a second. Right.
Yeah, but it's my question isn't about the change in substance. I get what you're saying there, but I'm kind of saying with transubstantiation in general, the accidental properties remain. With the Eucharistic miracles, the accidental properties are lost or they change, so that they're not the same. And I was wondering why is that, if it's confirmation of transubstantiation?
I admit I'm not too. I'm looking here at what St. Thomas Aquinas said. The objection to further to be any deception and sign of the truth. Okay. Here it is. This was an objection. The objection that St. Thomas Aquinas presented. Further, there ought not be any deception in a sacrament of truth, but we judge of substance by accidents. It seems that human judgment is deceived if, while the accident remains, the substance of bread does not. Consequently, this is unbecoming to the sacrament. Am I reading what was your objection? This is the objection. This is not the answer. But am I presenting what practically was your question?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not trying to say, oh, it's deceitful and stuff like that. I'm just trying to say, like, there's a difference. Like when you went to mass last week or yesterday, whenever it was you went,
there was a bread and wine.
So the accidental properties of the bread and wine stayed the same, right?
Yes, yes.
But in the Eucharistic miracles, that's not happening. The accidental properties are changing or just being dropped altogether or something like that. Mm-hmm. So there's a disconnect there. There's a disanalogy. And that's where I'm wondering, like, if the Eucharistic miracles are meant to be confirmation. Go ahead.
Can put you on hold. I'm going to look for another book. I think that should be the answer there.
Sure. Yeah.
Or do you want me to look later? I don't know.
Totally up to you. Like,
if I can, I need to find it, because just a second. I'll try to be as quick as possible. Otherwise,
no worries. So, yeah. Sorry. Okay. So, yeah. In terms of I see that KR. I was waiting for this to the end, but KR is asking Massimo if he thinks there would be a good film or series about the Shroud. So. Again, I'll ask Massimo at the end that, but I don't know if you know, Keith or KR there, that Rob Schneider, famous Hollywood actor, is actually working on a movie about the Shroud of Turin based on Joe Marino's life. So that should be really good. Multi-million-dollar project. Okay. And yeah. And I already answered Harry Stark's question, but yeah, I guess another thing I'll just raise on this that I won't ask Massimo about, but another issue. If you heard, I did a Eucharistic debate with Louis Dizon on the issue of the Eucharist and transubstantiation in particular. And one of the things I argued for is going to be controversial. That is that part of the substance, the essence of being a human being, is physical, right? Because what is the nature or the essence of a human being? It's we are a soul or okay, so he's back.
I'm back. So I think
and if you're not able to find it in the show,
it's kind of what I said earlier, that
and yeah, KR, yeah, that movie is in the works. I think Rob Schneider's raised about 20 million or something, or maybe that's the goal he's trying to reach, but that's in the works already. Yeah.
Okay, no, somehow I confirm what I said earlier, that remaining the quantitative dimensions, miraculously occurs a change as far as it concerns the other accidents, like the figure, the color, and other similar accidents, so that that can be seen in the flesh or in the or in the blood. And here St. Thomas keeps repeating that it's not an issue of misleading the faithful, because these occurs, so the change of bread or wine into flesh or is not to deceive or but to give reality to give a figure, a visibility to a certain reality that is the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. But so there is not deception or misleading the faithful. The sacramental structure remains because the flesh and the blood are sacrament of the body and blood of Christ.
Gotcha.
Like the action of the bread and wine preserve the property of the bread and the wine, so also these accidents much more immediate from the point of the view of visibility concern miraculously the quality of the flesh and the blood, and so they are then not only perceivable but also scientifically analyzable, can be analyzed. But if it remains the sacrament, remains the necessity of faith. It is true that under the accidents of either under the accident of bread and wine or under the accident miraculously of flesh and blood, the real what I said earlier, the real body and blood of Christ present in the sacrament cannot be perceived by the senses, but only by faith. And that is based on divine authority. And
okay.
And in the knowing process, the total perception of truth is guaranteed, because the accidents are visible through the senses, but on the other side, the intellect, of which we'll talk later a little bit, that is the faculty allows us the knowledge of the divine truth, that is aimed to the knowledge of the substance of Christ, is preserved by mistake thanks to the faith. So we go back a little bit to what we are talking earlier about, why God doesn't allow the detection of the DNA. Because somehow that would be too much a powerful evidence that would probably push some people, not everybody, not to make any more an effort of faith, of believing through the intellect, not just through the senses. That mistake that somehow St. Thomas, not Thomas Aquinas, St. Thomas, the apostle, did when he said, I shall not believe unless I see. But then Christ said, blessed you, now you have believed, now my Lord and my God. And Christ said, well, now you believe because you have seen. Blessed are those who will believe without having seen. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, kind of thing. So yeah, so just I think so. Thomas Aquinas, in his expression of the doctrine proper, he allows he says either in the accidents of the bread and wine or the accidents of flesh and blood through miraculous activity. So the doctrine itself allowed.
There is not, although there is a change of accident, but there is no deception. There is no deception of faith, because that faith still needs to remain. That is based on the authority of God and of Scriptures, and that can be perceived. The accident can be perceived by the senses, mainly the eyesight, But the belief in the real presence of Christ and the Eucharist at that point is no more an issue of senses, not even of reason. It's an issue of the need of the intellect. And we are going to talk in a little bit about the intellect. So I'm really...
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for looking into that kind of thing. And I'll let you get into the theology aspect and finish off. But yeah, thank you for indulging me in that.
No. I love theology. Actually, I'm getting more and more into develop somewhat I could call, as I told you, the theology of the shroud. So awesome. That is one part that I love.
Awesome. That's your bread and butter.
The most, yeah, kind of. So now we get into the theological aspect and symbolic aspects of the shroud. So we have seen, sorry. of the Eucharist, the Eucharistic miracles. So we have seen that practically in all these five elements. In those all five Eucharistic miracles, there was myocardial tissue. Both Franco Serafini, Dr. Franco Serafini, in a lecture, but he was kind of saying in a sense almost sarcastic, and not really. But also, I think it was Tyler Fowler in that video of July said, "Well, myocardial, what's the need? It could be anything as long as flesh. Why? Who cares if somehow he said it was if it would have been stuff being heart was I don't know, liver or lung or kidney. What was the difference? Well, and I told you yesterday. I think actually there is an extremely important difference. Number one, as I told you yesterday when we talked, is that the one fundamental symbol meaning of the symbolism of the heart is its centrality in the human body. And in order to show this, I'll use another piece of art. This is the Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci. Probably I would say everybody has seen this kind of drawing. So if you see the human heart inside the body is placed more or less, not exactly at the center of the chest, but a little bit to the left, but fundamentally, without being so strict or too meticulous or fastidious or precise, it's practically at the intersection of of the vertical axis of the body with the horizontal axis formed by the two arms stretched on both sides, and it's there. So somehow, if you notice here, so the human heart has this symbolism of centrality, as also the symbol of centrality is representing. So the human heart in if you want through an anatomical symbolism, but in an astronomical symbolism, the aspect of centrality is represented by the sun. I'll touch there. So let's start with this is a representation of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. You see, so the heart practically placed at the center of the body of Christ. If you see that there are rays of light which radiate from all around the heart, and those rays of light symbolize divine light, divine truth. Symbolize light and of course divine truth. Remember at the beginning, after the prayer said fire has two natures, light and heat. Here we have light in the form of those rays that radiate all around the heart of Jesus, and heat is symbolized by that flame at the top, which symbolizes divine love. So now I said that besides the human heart, also the sun has the symbol of centrality. And now I'll skip this. We have explained. This is a monstrance. The monstrance is the liturgical object that in Catholicism is used to place the consecrated host at the center for Eucharistic adoration. And you can see here very clearly that it looks like a sun. The color is kind of golden. There are rays that radiate from all around. And I would assume that, although I never found any specific proof of it, that the reason of this liturgical object representing the sun is find its origin in the description of the future Messiah given by prophet Malachi in his book, Malachi chapter 3, verses 20, where Malachi calls the future Messiah the Son, S-U-N, not S-O-N, S-U-N, the future, the Son of Justice with healing rays. So here we see again the rays, but whereas in let me go back. Whereas in the Sacred Heart of Jesus, you see light that radiates and heat that's symbolized by the flame. In the case of the monstrance, there are straight rays. You see that the longer ones are straight, and there was those who symbolize the light. Whereas, if you notice, then between each two of the straight rays, there are two straight short rays, but then at the center there are winding rays. You see the winding rays, like this one, like this one, like this one, like this one. Do you see them?
Show it again.
There are some rays that are winding, are curvy, are not straight.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing that. Again, your mouse is just off, kind of thing.
There are per every winding ray, then there are three straight rays, two short and one long, and then another winding ray, then one short, one long, one short. Then again, do you see them?
Yeah, I do now.
Okay. So the straight rays symbolize the light, so divine truth. The winding rays symbolize the heat, so divine love. So in order to imitate Christ, so this, of course, also the sun has a symbolism of a meaning of centrality, because as the heart is at the center of human body, so the sun at the center of the solar system. But regarding the symbolism of the straight and winding rays, in the imitation of Christ, in order to conform ourselves to Christ, we need both divine truth and we need also divine light, divine love, that is the symbolized by the heat or the winding rays. If we have only love, which is a form of passion, is a kind of passion, but not illuminated by divine truth, we have like a blind love. You know, the people say love is blind, but love as a passion, if it's blind, it's not illuminated by divine light, can lead people to do sometimes unwise things. Does it make sense?
Yep.
Okay. On the other hand, if we have the light, but is not heated, warmed up by divine love, we have a cold light, like the light of the moon, which, astronomically speaking, the light of the moon, which is a reflected light, number one, is not a direct light. Plus, is a cold light. And light and moon, astronomically speaking, in astronomical symbolism, symbolize reason. The sun, symbolically speaking, symbolizes the intellect. The moon, astronomically speaking, symbolizes the intellect. So, in order to conform ourselves to Christ, what did I say? I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. I must switch the moon symbolizes the reason. The sun symbolizes the intellect. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. To support this fact that the sun, the heart and the sun, which both have this symbolism of centrality, from a cognitive point of view, symbolize the intellect. I'm going to quote these two passages from scriptures. The first one is, let's say that is from the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians 3, chapter 3, verses 17 and 18. That the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, may give you a spirit of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of him, having the eyes of your hearts enlightened, that you may know the hope to which he has called you. So the eye of the heart, so he talks about the eyes of the heart, not because the heart has two eyes, but the eye of the heart, one eye, in not only in the Christian tradition, but also in the Muslim tradition and also in the Jewish tradition, is a symbol of the intellect. And the intellect, I know that starting with René Descartes, who ushered in the age of rationalism, and practically with a stroke of sponge removed from the history of philosophy the idea of the intellect. The intellect is the power, the faculty that allow us to understand divine truth. This is we hear St. Paul talks about, may give you a spirit of wisdom and revelation, the knowledge of him, of God. And in the Beatitude, Matthew 5:8, Christ says, blessed the pure of heart, because they will see God. Not because they will understand God, well, not because they will be liked by God, not because will be appreciated by God. They will see God. See how they will see God. With symbolically, with the eye of the heart. That is a symbol of the intellect. Does it make sense so far? These are very, very abstract concepts, but somehow there are some scriptural support of this, what I'm trying to explain.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I get what you're trying to argue. Yeah.
So far, so good?
So far, so good. Yeah.
I'm glad. So these are three authors that were not Christian. One was Proclus, second Macrobius, and the third Plutarch. Proclus was a Byzantine philosopher of forgot, just a second. The note. Proclus was born in 412, died in 485, was a Byzantine philosopher. Macrobius was a Latin grammarian and philosopher, and Plutarch was a Greek Platonist philosopher. So they were ancient philosophers. They were not necessarily Christian philosophers, but they all connect the heart with the intelligence and with the sun. The first one, actually, the title of this first hymn by Proclus was the hymn to the sun. So this is why the sun is not mentioned. But so Proclus wrote, occupying the midmost throne above the ether, and having as emblem and dazzling circle which is the heart of the world, thou fillest all with the divine providence apt to awaken the intelligence. So it's the heart to and hymn to the sun, that is also called the heart of the world, and fills everything with the divine providence up to awaken the intelligence. So the connection between the sun, the heart, and the intelligence. Then Macrobius talked the denomination intelligence of the world responds to that of heart of heaven, source of ethereal light. The sun is for this fluid what the heart is for the animated being. So again, a connection between the heart and the sun and intelligence. And finally, Plutarch, although he doesn't mention specifically the intelligence, but he said the sun, having the strength of a heart, disperses, giving out from itself heat and light as if these were blood and breath. Now I go to another very beautiful piece of art. I'm sure this is not it's not well known because it's not described in the books of history of art. But this is a small marble from the Carthusian monastery of Saint Denis d'Orc in France that dates to the 16th century. So here on the left-hand side, there is what is the original. On the left-hand side, there is a drawing by the French archaeologist Louis Charbonneau-Lassay, who studied this marble. So with symbols that probably are easily to be identified than if you look at the marble itself. So at the center, there is a heart. So we go back to the heart. And the heart as central, as symbolically the seat of the intellect, and also as the center of the human body, and also radiating rays of light and with a flame like in the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So you have the heart, and then you see that around the heart there are again straight rays that are the one I'm marking now, and there are winding rays. Usually here there are alternately one straight, one winding, one straight, one winding, one straight, one winding, one straight, one winding. Do you see them?
Yep.
Okay. So implying that not only that he's a heart, but he's also somehow the son of justice. So and around the heart, which is radiating heat and light, there are two circles. One circle with the 12 constellations of the zodiac, symbolizing the yearly itinerary of the Earth around the Sun. So practically is the symbolism of time, of the yearly cycle of the Earth through the different constellations. And then there are the planets visible by the naked eye in the more inner circle. If you see here, can you see my cursor in this point?
It's not on a point, but
No, the point. There is like a circle. You see this circle here?
yeah, yep.
Okay, if you look inside the circle, there is the physical sun. See, there is the central head with rays around.
Right in the center, yeah. I see the heart with the thing.
Okay, well, that is the physical sun, implying that yes, that one is more or less at 11 hours, between 10 and 11 hours. 11 o'clock in the inner circle. That symbol there, that is the physical sun, meaning that what is at the center, that the heart of the world or the sun of the world is not the physical sun, it's the spiritual sun. It's Christ, the King of the world, Lord and center of time and on the whole universe. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then the last thing so practically this symbolism here combines the symbolism of the heart, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and the symbolism of the monstrance. It combines it in one symbol. At the center, you see that what looks like a string bean. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That looks like a comma. Okay, but actually, that has three different meanings. Literally means the wound caused by the centurion when he pierced the chest and consequently the heart of Christ. The second symbolized the yod. The yod is the smallest letter in the Jewish alphabet. Is the 10th letter, but practically all the other letters can be derived by the yod. So practically this idea of a central element from all the other letters can derive. So that it recalls again the centrality of Christ. And finally, it somehow the third, probably I would call the higher, the most the loftiest of the three meanings, symbolize the eye of the heart, of which St. Paul talks in the letter to the Ephesians 1:18. Does it make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. So now we go to another. To show, so what I showed earlier, and so I'm going to go back super quick. So this is the traditional monstrance. So has the shape of the sun, the color of the sun, the straight rays and winding rays, and so on. When the doctrinal teaching tends to be to become weaker, it's not, things are not taught anymore. Then we can see the repercussions in several aspects, also in liturgical objects. This is another monstrance in which you can see, number one, the color is much darker than This is probably still brass, but definitely doesn't recall the color of gold. It's almost recalls more the color of bronze. And there is definitely no distinction between, with exception of these 4 arms of 1, 2, 3 upper, left, right, and left arms of the cross. There is no distinction between the straight or winding rays. There is like a halo around the center, but no distinction anymore. So the symbolism here is definitely much less clear, much weaker. And then I'll show you what was used last year at the monster was used at the World Youth Day in 2023. Here, the symbolism, I would say, is completely gone. Number one, there is not the color, the color neither of gold nor of brass that recalls the sun. Actually, this is a silver color. I'm sure it's not silver, but probably is some other metal. But it's shiny, but whitish or grayish. Definitely not yellowish or like in gold. Number two, there are like two monstrances, one inside the other. And as I said earlier, the color reminds me more of the moon rather than the sun. And the rays that, number one, there is no distinction differentiation between straight and winding rays, and they cross each other. It seems I don't know, a moon on drugs with the I'm sorry I don't want to sound disrespectful, but definitely that doesn't. There is an abyss of them from the point of view of symbolism between these monstrance and the first one I've shown. So far, so good.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, regarding the why in all this the heart and why a suffering heart. Of course, one reason it could be the fact of reminding us of the when I describe what I see in the shroud, I see in the shroud an inhumane suffering undergone out of an infinite love for us. So number one, I can see the suffering of Christ, but one thing, unfortunately, we live in a society and a civilization in which we have almost lost the idea of we have kind of demonized pain. No one wants to suffer. Everyone wants to. We spend millions, if not billions, of dollars in painkillers, tranquilizers, so pills or medicines that help us to relieve physical pain and psychological pain. And we don't realize that number one, pain has a positive aspect that I'm not proposing that we need to suffer from morning till night, but if we didn't have the feeling sensation of pain, or then we could put a hand on the range or get cut completely and keep it there because don't feel any pain. Pain has like as I said at the beginning, what could be the meaning of the Eucharistic miracle, it has a significance and a utility of being a warning. If we put the hand on fire or into an electric socket or whatever, we pull it out immediately because it hurts. If we didn't have pain, we could let the hands get roasted or whatever. But so besides this fact that I understand that pain is not pleasant. I'm not recommending let's start to enjoy pain. I'm not proposing to become masochistic or because I'm sadistic. So that totally not. This is not the case. But there is another aspect that we have also definitely totally lost the understanding of the redemptive value of suffering. In the letter of St. Paul to the Colossians 1:24, St. Paul says, I rejoice in my suffering for your sake, and in my suffering I complete what is lacking in the suffering of Christ for the sake of his body, that is the church. So St. Paul talks about completing what is lacking in the suffering of Christ. What does it mean? The suffering of Christ at Calvary was not complete? No, it was totally complete. But exactly because it was totally complete, if we unite intentionally and voluntarily our suffering to the suffering of Christ, he can invest our suffering of redemptive power. So he practically can make, like God can make two parents who give birth to a new life, co-creators with him. So Christ, if we intentionally unite our suffering to his, can make us co-redeemers with him. So I'm saying, I'm not starting saying, let's go back to the Middle Age where there were people who would scourge themselves or to wear things that were horribly irritating in order to suffer. But if pain occurs, either we bang the knee or the foot against the table, or if we have some chronic disease. In my case, I've done it for my depression. If there is pain that is there, that we cannot avoid, well, let's try to unite our pain to the suffering of Christ. Let's try to allow him to make us co-redeemers with him. So in my case, has had an enormous value in being able to endure better the suffering of my depression. And finally, I'm getting closing to that. I know it's almost 4 hours, not 3 hours and 40 minutes. The issue of this blood. I know that there is the issue that not necessarily was AB. Okay, I leave it that the possibility that could, but let me, as of now, remain in case the blood were AB. AB is out of the blood can be 0, A, B, or AB. 0 is the universal donor. So someone who has blood 0 can give his or her blood to anyone. AB is the universal recipient. Someone who has blood AB can receive blood from anyone. And by the way, AB is the rarest of all the group blood types. It exists only in 5% of the human population. For years, I expected the blood of Christ to be 0 because he had shed so much blood during his passion, especially on the cross. That I expected to be 0 because he gave blood for everybody. But actually, in case it were AB, it's AB. So for years I tried to come to understand why AB, why the universal recipient instead of being the universal. Why the universal recipient instead of the universal donor. I started to get an idea and then clicked almost like when the light bulb went off when I thinking of that passage in Matthew that he's here on the top of the slide. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I shall give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, from a gentle and lowly of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Christ said, come to me. He didn't say, let me give you my blood. Come to me. So I started thinking, come to me. Practically, the Catholic doctrine talks about that the church is the mystical body of Christ, of which Christ is the head. So Christ is kind of, and this is what I had something at the beginning in one of the slides. Christ is calling us to unite ourselves to him, to become part of the mystical body of Christ, which is the church. Each one to be part of that. And at least spiritually, of course, not literally, becoming part of that body, if being him the universal recipient, he can receive all of us. Won't reject anyone. He will accept saints and sinners, regardless of our religion, color of skin, or whatever. I find this, he invites us to unite ourselves to him. And regarding this fact of Christ is calling us to unite ourselves to him, this other passage, the one at the bottom, it says, the glory which you have given me, I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one. we meaning Christ and the Father, I in them and thou in me, that they may be perfectly one. So Christ is calling us to unite always, all of us to him. And the more the unity is perfect. Of course, there are indefinitely nuances or grades of unity with Christ, but I would like to here, and this is the last, the conclusion. There is Origen, who was a Christian philosopher, who commented, "No one can penetrate its meaning who has not rested on Jesus' breast and taken Mary as his mother." So we know that John at the Last Supper rested his head on the chest of Christ, so he was able to listen to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. That was also the symbol of the divine intellect. To be like John, one needs to be able, like him, to be pointed out as another Jesus. And so, if Mary had no other children but Jesus, Jesus said to his mother, "Behold your son," and not "behold another son." Then it is as if he were saying, "Behold your son to whom you have given life." And so it is, anyone who has identified with Christ no longer lives for himself. Christ lives in him. This is as what St. Paul says in the letter to the Galatians 2:20. I've been crucified with Christ. It's no more I who live, but it's Christ who lives in me. And then I conclude now with Origen saying, and given that Christ lives in him, Jesus says of him to Mary, "Behold your son, Christ." So here I'm done. Thank you those who are still have resisted so far. It's almost 3 hours and 45 minutes. But the point is that I wish you and I wish myself, this is what I'm aiming to be able that at the end of our life, once we show in front of Christ, in case he asks us, "Who are you?" we could be able to answer, "I'm you." In the sense that our unity with him has become so perfect that we have become him. And with this, I thank you so much for your patience. And if there are questions, I'm available to answer them.
No problem. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's believe it or not, I'm having next week Jack Marquardt on, so it's going to be similar.
You told me.
Yeah, he does similar 4 hours. So no worries about that. It's great to get all the information out there and take the time to go over these issues in depth. So I appreciate you going over everything there.
So and, I try to approach number one from the what is the doctrine about the Eucharist in the Church. Then I told practically the history of these 5 Eucharistic miracles that we have seen. Mm-hmm. And then I decided to focus on those 5 because there are 5 Eucharistic miracles that have been examined scientifically. And also, since many people pay more attention to science than to doctrines, should not be like that. But I'm not condemning them to hell for that attitude. And finally, that was the part that I love the most. The theology, the symbolism is absolutely, I find, mind-boggling. So anyway, awesome. I'm open to the questions if there are.
Yeah, it looks like we've got 2 general and kind of easy questions. So the first is from Harry Stark. He asked this a while back, but he was asking, has Massimo already addressed Marian apparitions? Yeah.
Where in this talk or?
Yeah, so I told him that wasn't the topic for today, but just in general, what's your take on Marian apparitions?
Well, I believe in them because also for Marian apparitions, I believe to those which have been approved by the Church, like with the Eucharistic miracles. Anyway, having said that, I give presentations also about the tilma of Our Lady of Guadalupe. I have a life-size replica of the tilma, as I have 2 life-size replicas of the shroud that I of course I show when there are live presentations. So I have an audience in front of me. It's not that easy to show the life-size replica when I am on a computer screen. So yes, I believe to the Marian apparition that, but again, provided that our Marian apparition have been approved by the Church. An example, for example, Medjugorje has still to be approved by the church. So I went there. I've been to Medjugorje, but I would not say, oh, absolutely. I follow the magisterium of the church until the church doesn't approve it. I'm not trying to. No. Those are I guarantee I believe in them, even though the church has not. I leave the reservation of the doubt. So that's the point.
Gotcha. Kind of open to and then
anyway, just to conclude, I give presentation about Our Lady of Guadalupe. If you want to invite me to talk about Our Lady of Guadalupe, I'm available. So,
gotcha. All right, and this last from not least is from KR or Keith. Ask Massimo if he thinks the world currently lacks a good film or series about the Shroud of Turin. So yeah, I don't know. I was telling him about Rob Schneider working on a film, but yeah, like what's your take? Do you think that we need a film or a television series?
Well, it's film usually, correct me, but at least this is how film to me usually is something that is fictional, not necessarily in the sense that is not real, but often I've seen movies, even movies that are based on true facts. Usually there is always some, the movie director or the producer always takes some liberty, not monstrous, but some.
Mm-hmm.
I personally prefer documentaries, to say the truth.
Maybe a good series of documentaries on.
I think I would not say that I've seen all the documentaries about the Shroud that have been produced, but the ones that I like, I would say probably the most, are the ones that have been produced directed by David Rolfe. So,
gotcha. Yep. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Because I know Guy Powell. He wrote a book, but it's a fiction book, so he sees the root of like fiction as actually a good means. So yeah, I think it's good to have Body of Christ with different. We need, like, I'm kind of more like you. I prefer the documentaries, the strict factual stuff, and that kind of debate. What?
Probably, as you can understood, if you can understood from this presentation, I am a detail-oriented person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So I definitely prefer documentaries than films in which some things you don't know if really occurred or not. Then you have to investigate. I prefer some documentary claims to be accurate, even though there are some documentaries that are not that. I saw documentaries that were not that phenomenal, but nonetheless, at least the intention was to be historically and scientifically accurate, or doctrinally accurate. But though sometimes the results didn't follow the intention. So.
So I just wanted to just follow up though, like what I was saying. I also do see the value, even though not for me personally. I see the value of also taking the fictional approach that Guy Powell and perhaps Rob Schneider are doing, just because most people aren't kind of like us. They prefer kind of the fictional or like a movie. Do you think that's like what are your thoughts on the majority of people bringing them in with that?
Well, there is an Italian proverb that says "Il mondo è bello perché vario." The world is beautiful because it is diversified. Some people have a musical memory. I have a visual memory. Even when there is a homily or the gospel, I need to read it. If just listening to it, I'm not the same. I don't get the same effect. Some people prefer, like me, prefer hard-nosed science or strict doctrine. Some people prefer some less strict or less scientific evidence. So we are different. There are not two people who are the same. Even twin brothers, they didn't. I would bet no two twin brothers have undergone the same events in they were born. So maybe one night one went to the movies, the other one went to his girlfriend, so whatever. So that, no two human beings are the same. So we need somehow follow what is our nature, what we think is our vocation, what we feel that God is calling us to do, and so be it. So as long as we don't deform the truth, or when we get into fiction, or that is how I see it.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Well, that's it for the question. So yeah, I'll just say thanks again for coming on and doing the presentation. Like I said, this isn't going to be your last time. I think you're. I'm not sure. Are you coming on to do the discussion first, or are you going to be doing the theology of the Shroud presentation first? Because I know you said you needed more time to work on the latter.
Probably the theology of the Shroud first. Yes.
Okay, cool. So, yep, Massimo will be back.
I want to coordinate also eventually with Franco, so to see what are his commitments. But gotcha. I'll let you know. No problem.
Sounds.
I'll let you know as soon as possible. One question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. One question. In order to, this is going to be recorded and placed on YouTube, correct?
Yeah, we're live on YouTube right now. So.
No, I know I'm live, but if I want to rewatch myself to see.
Oh, of course, yeah. It's there. It's there permanently. So yeah, I'll send you the links.
Okay. You send me the links. Okay. Well, thank you so much to you and to all the people who have been able to resist for 4 hours.
No problem. They're used to it on my channel, so believe it or not.
You told me I can go for long shows, so I felt very comfortable because I know sometimes I can go quite long. So I'm glad, and thank you to everybody, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Awesome. All right, guys, take care, and I'll see you guys next week for Jack Marquardt on the Shroud, and in particular for the audience, we were going to cover the period from 901 to 1204, but Jack has just found so much details that he needs to devote the entire show, the 3-hour show, whatever it is, just for the 1 century from 901 to 1000 AD. There's that much information that we need to go over. So that'll be next Saturday. But other than that, have a great week, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.